My name is Tom Lopez. I'm calling to order a meeting of the Human Affairs Committee on March 18th, 2024 at 7 p.m. We are here in the Aldermanic Chamber. Let's start by taking roll call.
Alderman Thomas Lopez, Chair.
I'm here.
Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly, Vice Chair.
Here.
Alderwoman at Large Gloria Timmons.
Here.
Alderman Tim Senate is here, and Alderman Chris Thibodeau.
Here.
We have 5 in attendance.
All right. Also in attendance, we have Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager, Karen Smith, Business Manager, Deb Chisholm, Sustainability Manager, and Director Sullivan, who has a whole department. It's very exciting. Anything else?
Liz Hannum's also here.
Liz Hannum is also, Economic Development Director is also here. So we'll start with public comment. Just as a quick memorandum before we get too into the agenda, without objection, we're going to swap the new business with the presentations, just because there's a number of city staff here, so we want to make sure they're able to use their time economically since budget season's coming up. So seeing none, we'll start with public comment.
Did you mention Director Long? I didn't hear that in the comment.
Yes,
Oh,
Urban Program Manager Long.
okay. All right, just checking.
So members who are here to present on different organizations, you'll have a chance to present on your organizations, but you are also members of the public. So if you want to make public comment, you step up to the podium, give your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes. Seeing none, we will just move on to communications.
All right. Communication has been received from Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager, regarding the Urban Programs Department updates for February 2024.
All right, without objection, we will accept the communication and place it on file. Now we're going to switch over to new business, and then we'll go back to the presentations in a moment.
All right.
Mr. Clerk.
New business resolutions. Up first is R24-017, relative to the acceptance of $33,929.50 from the United States Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance into Police Grant Activity 2023 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant Program. I will make a motion to recommend final passage.
All right, and I see we have a representative from the police here to speak to it.
Yes, sir. How's everyone doing tonight? My name's Steve Helm. I'm the grant manager for the Nashville Police Department. Just took over for Kevin Pasillo. The grant I'm here to speak about tonight is from the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, and it's in regards to the Bulletproof Vest Partnership. The amount that the grant is for is $33,929.50, which requires a grant city match of the same. It's 50-50. This grant covers 50% of the price per ballistic vest for each Nashville police officer, and the remaining cost is covered by the city match. These are for all new officers at the Nashville Police Department, as well as any officer who may need a replacement.
And I see that this is under 2023,
Yes.
meaning that this would have been a budget item from our previous budget year.
Yes, I think due to COVID, everything got put behind, so I think it's just the way the fiscal years match up.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
I have a question.
Alderman
Thank you,
Timmons.
Chairman. I just have one question. The question is, how many vests do you think this would purchase?
So I believe the cost of each vest is going up just over $1,100. So the police department would obviously, I'm not a math major, but 550, and the city would require to cover the other 550. So, but they're decently expensive. So.
Just doing some quick math here, there's 33,000, so 500 each is 60.
Don't quote me on the exact price. I have the price up on my board, but it's around that. So
As we were told, it will be exactly $500. But ballparking it? I mean,
ballparking, yes, sir.
Just trying to figure out how many vests we're buying.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, without objection, well, I guess I can't really do that without an objection. All those in favor of recommending final passage, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will recommend that to the full board.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good night.
Have a good day.
Next up.
R24-022, authorizing the mayor to apply for and expend the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnership Program funds for the fiscal year 2025. I will make a motion to recommend final passage.
Okay. Now, we are taking that out of order, so stay tuned, anyone who's watching, because we're about to get presentations from different organizations that are applying for said funds.
This is for next year, right?
Alderman Kelly?
Good evening. If I may, I think it would make more sense for you to take up this item after the presentations.
Okay. All right, so we won't make a motion on that at this point. We will take that up after the presentations.
I will withdraw my motion. All right. Next up is R-24-030, relative to the acceptance of $86,015 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Species Program and to authorize the transfer of matching funds. I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage.
All right, and I see we have Ms. Chisholm.
Hi, Deb Chisholm, Sustainability Department Manager. This is my annual trip in front of you guys to ask you to accept the grant funds from the Department of Environmental Services for our aquatic exotics invasive species management program. They are also, this is a 50-50 grant. They'll give us half the money and we'll pay for the other half. This year is our big year where we're doing, we're hiring the contractor to do herbicide spray in the Nashua River and in the mill pond and in the canal. We also have a little bit of a side gig going on where we're gonna address Sandy Pond as well, but that's not relative to the grant money. But that's our fairly comprehensive every other year application. Every year we do the application in the Nashua River itself. But this year the mill pond and the canal are getting a piece of the action as well.
So since I asked the last time, this is accepting grant money for an item that was budgeted in the previous grant operation year?
It was not. The money's coming, part of the match money is coming from contingency, part of the match money is coming from the Mine Falls Trust Fund.
Okay, so it's not specifically budgeted, but at the same time, it won't be coming in under the incoming budget?
It will be coming in under an incoming budget for next year's work.
Okay. Any questions from the board, commission? Was that a waiver? No. Okay, all right, that looks like everyone's on the same page here. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Final passage, thank you for coming.
I believe that's our last piece of new business.
Yep, so back to the main event. We're gonna be doing our presentations for the CDBG proposals.
Just want to take them in order.
Yep, first up, we have the Plus Company. Representative of the Plus Company like to come up. You can use the podium if you have a presentation. The clicker pointy device thing is right there at the first spot. Or if you'd like to sit, then feel free.
I'll
We'll
stand.
have you present and then members will ask clarifying questions then.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kim Schatz, the Executive Director of the Plus Company. We're a nonprofit agency pretty much right across the street over at 19 Chestnut Street. And I first want to start by saying thank you very much for previous CDBG funds that have been given to the Plus Company. It has gone a long way in really helping us keep our building safe for the over 400 individuals that we support with developmental disabilities. This year, we're asking for $10,500. And some of that money will be used to one of our entrances, our side entrance, which is a main entrance for staff and the people that we support. It's the original to the building, and it's like a slate floor, and it's very bumpy, and it's a trip hazard. So we have a lot of people that have mobility issues. So getting a nice smooth floor would be helpful. And the other expense that we're requesting funds for is new countertops in our kitchen cafeteria. We have a large number of individuals that take cooking classes, eat their lunches there, do crafts. There's a lot of things that occur in our kitchen. And the countertops, we had put them in when we had moved in about 15 years ago, but they were, I guess you get what you pay for. They weren't very good quality, and so they're peeling a little bit. So they're a safety issue as well, and a sanitary issue because you can't clean them as much. So that is what we are requesting the CDBG funds for. Any questions?
Can you tell me, in general, how many people would take classes or utilize that? As a
We
work-
support over 400 people in the greater Nashua area, and I would say probably at least half of those are actively coming into the building on a regular basis, taking classes. We do a lot of work out in the community as well, so we might be at the Nashua Public Library or at the Y for different programs, but home base is 19 Chestnut Street. That's where most people start and end their day.
What are the eligibility criteria for the population you serve?
We provide supports to people with developmental and intellectual disabilities. It's funded through the state of New Hampshire, so it's Medicaid, and so there's a federal dollars and state dollars that provides supports to us to provide everything that we do, which is, you know, residential programs, employment programs, day programs, community support programs. The eligibility criteria is set by the state. People would have to go through the area agency system, of which there's 10 in the state, and they determine eligibility, but essentially it's an intellectual or developmental disability.
What are the ages that people would be working?
We support people, adults primarily. We do have a school-age program at St. Joseph's Hospital called Project Search, but primarily 21 years and above. If an individual graduates from high school at 18, we can also support them.
Okay. Any
No
questions
question.
from the committee members? Alderman Timmons?
Thank you, Chairman Lopez. I do have a question. I like the fact that your AMI is 30%, that's 200, that's pretty good. You saw in your application there's a funding of only $1,000. Do you have any other funding coming from anywhere else?
We do fundraising, so we do use those funds primarily to do the classes that we offer, because the Medicaid dollars really only provide supports for staff. You know, they don't provide supports for building and maintenance and any of that. So we do have fundraising dollars that we have to use to supplement that. We would not be able to use the federal Medicaid dollars to do this work. They don't,
Yeah.
it's not approved.
Anything else?
No, no.
Alderman Kelly?
I first just wanted to thank you for the work that you do in the community. I had the pleasure of attending the Wild Irish Breakfast on Friday, and it was nice to hear from some testimonies from people that you work with. So thank you for that. My question to everybody will be, what would you do if you only got partial amount of the money that you're asking for?
Well, there are two projects, so we probably would fund one project over the other, and then either see if we have additional fundraising dollars that would be available to do that, or we would have to wait. We do write grants as well. It's hard to find capital grants, unfortunately. A lot of funders like to fund programs, which I understand. So capital is definitely one of those items that is very hard to fund.
Great, thank you.
This might be a question for Urban Manager Long, but you might know as well. Does CBG have any kind of strings attached to doing something in the kitchen or that area? I know in the past, one of the more nefarious examples was Habitat was trying to use CDBG funding and basically found out they'd have to over-sprinkler a closet. So is there anything like that that would be, you know, brought into play if they were working on the kitchen?
Sure.
Good evening. The main restriction would be whether the project involves replacement of appliances. Appliances are generally considered a personal property versus a fixture, and therefore would be ineligible.
Okay. And as you had presented, this is for countertops, right? You're not trying to do anything? Okay.
Right, no appliances.
Okay. All
Is
right.
that it?
I think so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming up.
Next up is Nashua Soup Kitchen and Shelter.
Sure.
Okay. I was gonna say, don't ask me how.
You put the thing in the thing and then you open it up with the thing.
So there's a clicker, Tom?
There, it's right at the front thing.
Clicker's
there.
Oh,
by,
there it is.
yeah, at the end.
And you have to point it at.
Yeah, just point it at us.
Try to point it at the screen.
And then you move the slide.
Yeah, so back up and.
So good evening. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to present for the CDBG funds. I'm Jane Goodman. I'm the Executive Director for the Nashua Soup Kitchen and Shelter. This is my first time in these chambers presenting for something like this. So I will keep it brief. I've been coached. But you all know our mission is to feed the hungry, house the homeless, and support self-sufficiency. We provide food and shelter to vulnerable individuals and families in the greater Nashville region in a dignified and sustainable manner. And SKS works to increase access to a full spectrum of basic needs, and that's through advocacy, programming, and collaboration with other organizations. Oh, it worked. So in the last few years, you've probably heard us just talk about this nonstop. So I just put one picture up. I'm not going to talk about it today. But we finally, after finishing this capital campaign, are turning more of our attention back to 2 Quincy Street, which is our food pantry. So here's our food pantry. It's on 2 Quincy Street, as I just mentioned. This is an incredibly busy place, tons of foot traffic. We served over 5,600 meals in February alone. I just did those numbers for my board. Those are hot off the presses. Breakfast we serve Monday through Friday. Dinner is every day, a little modified time on Sunday, more of like a Sunday dinner. We have a food pantry that's open Monday through Friday. Again, a lot of traffic through there. People can come twice a week for fresh produce and bread, and then they can come once a month for a food box, which is meant to feed a family. For how long, that is under debate, but we try to do as much as we can to get those food boxes adequately stocked for families. Whoops.
Gonna back up here?
Is it letting me go back?
Is that it?
I think that's right. No. So beyond food, we give out toiletries, diapers, household items. We have a shower facility and a laundry facility. We're in the process of investigating how we can put another set of stackable washer and dryers in there. I just learned about 5 minutes ago that equipment is not going to be funded, so we'll never come back and ask for that. An outreach team for the homeless that provides IDs, housing, transportation. We have case managers on site in the dining room, homelessness prevention. We have healthcare navigators, mobile health clinics, Riviera Nursing, public health clinics. I guess that's all to say that we're pretty busy there. We see a lot of traffic. And then just to add to that, we are really run on volunteers. So we've been really fortunate being able to track our volunteer hours. People are using our system. So we have 728 registered volunteers. We had 109 sign up in February. 612 volunteer hours. That's a lot of people that, again, are coming through. So what do we need to fix? So this one I hear I might have more luck with. And this is our back floor. We, in September, with CDBG funds, we matched the funding that you guys granted us. And we did complete a flooring project. The problem is we ran out of funds. And so it stopped in the back areas of the pantry. And it also stopped in the stairs in our kitchen. And we really need to finish the job. So you can see here, I guess these pictures are really small, but you can see there's almost like a pothole right in a main traffic area in the back dock. And that's really a safety thing for our volunteers, especially because they're coming in and off the loading dock and unloading produce and other donations. And then you can see our kitchen stairs. This is a smaller piece of the project, honestly. They just need to be retreaded. Again, that's safety for our volunteers and for our kitchen staff. Oops. And then what's in question, and I did ask for this, is our refrigerator doors and our freezer doors are basically falling off. They're at a 10-year lifespan right now. We renovated the building in about 10 years ago. And I had an architect come and said, is it like our floors? Is it this? How do we fix this? And he felt that our floors were plumb and everything was fine. And then the refrigerator guy said, this is typical. After 10 years, you have that wear and tear. The only way for us to repair this is to, obviously get a new door, but get the whole new frame around it. And you can see here, and it's very hard to show this right now, but in the summer, just picture this with an inch of ice on it, caked up. And we've actually had this door fall off. I've gotten the food services director emailing me like, okay, the freezer door just fell off. So this is a problem. It's not sitting right. So we'd like to replace both the refrigerator and freezer doors and just get them plumb. And this is also a heating issue for us because not really heating, but heating and cooling and electricity issues. So right now, we're putting in more electricity into that freezer than we really need to. So to complete the flooring, $17,898, and then to replace the refrigerator and freezer doors, it's $11,069. Those are accurate to the dollar estimates. We did get estimates from contractors, also trying to do this work on the weekend because it's less disruptive for our clients. Just a little program overview about where our money comes from. 90% comes from private donations and event sponsorships. We receive less than 8% of our revenue from the public sector. This may go up a tiny bit. We have received a slight increase in state funding for next year, but all of that is designated toward the shelter. None of that can be used at the pantry. In-kind donations account for more than 50% of our revenue and expenses. That's all the food that people bring to our doorstep, which we're totally grateful for. Our admin, 12 cents, and fundraising costs 10 cents for every dollar raised. So we work really hard to raise the money. This is just a big outlay for us at this time, and we're hoping you can help. Any questions?
Just an observation, the stairs with the treading that you were talking about are also next to the mop closet, so sometimes there's water there. So just for, it's not like they just want better stairs, it could actually be slippery. Alderman Timmons?
I'd like to say, thank you, Jim. I'd like to thank the Nashville Soup Kitchen for everything that they do for the community. I've been following the Soup Kitchen and volunteering here and there since it was over in Chestnut Street, then came over to Block Street and was at the grand opening, and I was just blown away about everything the Soup Kitchen does.
Thank you.
So I don't have anything bad to say about it. Not one single thing. It's fantastic. I do have one question, however. And I just want to know, where did you come up with $28,967?
Oh, sure, I can go back. Let's see. Whoops. So we broke it out. I did have our flooring people who did the first part come back and say, look, you missed some areas. And they gave us that estimate, and that includes labor. It's very intensive work. This is really just the materials and the labor, never mind all the other work that it takes just to get ready to do the flooring project. It was like a behemoth that we did in September. So that's just a direct estimate from the flooring company. We did shop around quite extensively, so we don't want to go with someone else because we know that this is already the best deal we're going to get. And then the refrigerator door, again, that was from the, not the manufacturer, but the contractor who has access to those pieces. And then we also added in the electrical work, because when you take out the frame, you have to take out the electrical.
I was just surprised that you didn't round it up, that's all.
Oh, well, you know, I wanted you to know I have legit estimates.
Okay.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes, hi, thank you. My question was also around the estimates. So the number you had on up here includes, it looks like an entry mat that was removed in the one we got. Are you doing the entry mat or not?
An entry mat?
Yeah, I'm on looking at my phone, but it says, it looks like the update was actually changed to 17107. I just want to know which one you're looking for, because we're going to actually add it up.
Okay, so in full disclosure, I had a director who was out, so I pulled these numbers from the original invoices, so I would have to go back and look.
Okay.
I think we were originally talking about fixing the entry, and then we decided to cross that off.
Yeah.
Because there's a simpler solution with some waterproof paint.
Okay, great.
So thank you for pointing that out.
Alderman Thibodeau?
Yes, thank you. Could you explain define better the 8% public sector on the
Yeah.
other slide?
So when we talk about public sector, it's usually like city funding, municipal funding, and state funding. That's the only public that funds us.
Okay.
I mean, I guess you could consider the feds, but usually all filters through the state. So those are the areas, and we put that in because our municipal funding is very low compared to what we fundraise every year.
Gotcha. If I may, community outreach for some of these projects and help with some of these projects, is that something that's done? I don't know if the city has a network for people to do community outreach to help carpenters, contractors who are looking to volunteer services versus looking for funding to do them. I'm just curious if
you know,
those
we-
conversations have been had.
Yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of work with volunteers, especially when we were over putting, like, for example, furniture together for the shelter. But to be honest, we end up going back and hiring professionals to do it. It's not like Habitat for Humanity where they can, you know, just, excuse me, you know, they have, like, they're getting volunteers that are, you know, kind of vetted carpenters and that kind of thing. So to be honest, I didn't entertain that idea. We already have so many volunteers. And I find if I pay for someone to do a job, they're gonna come and do it. Whereas the volunteers don't always have to come and, you know, put that skin in the game for that project. So to be honest, that didn't occur to me to ask for the flooring for that. And definitely not for the fridge.
I can see that.
So. And I do see, thank you, Julian gave us, that was removed. So that $701 was removed, so I will correct that.
I just want to make sure we have the right answer.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question as well? if
Sure.
that's-
Alderman Kelly.
I just wanted to clarify, because I know we had an email and also a suggestion, so we cannot actually fund the refrigeration part of this project, is that true?
Good evening, Alderwoman. The answer is probably not. I did not originally raise it because it's not a standard fridge that you would have in your home. It's kind of built in. It's a walk-in fridge. I initially treated it as a fixture, but our project administrator believes it's probably not eligible, so I am deferring to his expertise in that. But it is a bit of a gray area.
So, if I could follow up,
Mhm.
is your recommendation, say we get to our part where we're doing the spreadsheet and we want to potentially fund it, is your recommendation to fund it and see what happens and see if they approve it, or?
I'm not sure I have a firm recommendation on what you should do. One possibility is to go ahead and fund the project in full, in which case I can submit it to our HUD representative for official determination, and we can adjust accordingly. Or you could just fund the flooring portion of the project.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Can-
I
Can I-
think Alderman Senna was waiting
okay,
for the next.
sure.
No, I was gonna ask questions about whether or not the fridge and the freezer will walk in and whether or not they'd be eligible, so.
When does a
I-
door become
sorry.
an
Great.
appliance?
But it's piggybacking on Alderman Kelly's question is, this is Mr. Long, he may be able to answer this. Would she be able to, or the soup kitchen be able to apply CAC in the future? Because we already, yeah, so.
Well, we already
why-
did apply for that, right? That's a separate application. Right?
If I understand the question correctly, is whether in future years this kind of project could receive CAC funds, and the answer to that is yes. Those are municipal funds, and their only restrictions are what we place upon them, either internally or by city ordinance.
So we may be able to do that, depending on how we do with that funding stream as well, so. But I'm glad there's a gray area, so let's just go with the gray area.
I mean, considering it's
that
a
it
freezing
works
door,
out.
it's a freezer door, we may want to do this in a more timely way than waiting until next year.
Well, I mean, we have to do it. We absolutely 100% have to do it. It's just, it's critical. It's, we were able to put it off this long because we thought we could at least get word of the funding before the summer. That's when I really want it done, before the summer, or like shortly after the summer begins, because again, it's just a chunk of ice, and it's just a bad use of our utilities. So
Any
anything?
further clarifying questions? All right,
All right, thank you.
thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Community Development Division. I think you chose that.
It's all right, he's already up.
I'll go here. Remember this taking a second. That's fine. That's okay. That's okay. Good evening, committee members. Matt Sullivan, Community Development Division Director for the record. I'll start just by saying that, and I think I make this comment every year, this is always an interesting night for city staff because we're here competing in a sense for funding against a lot of organizations in the community that do incredible work. And so it's challenging in that sense to come here saying that we're in need when there's so many other critical needs before you this evening, but we appreciate the opportunity to submit projects and your consideration this evening. I think I can say that on behalf of all city staff. This year, community development is putting forward one, what I would say relatively small project, and that is the replacement of 12 signs related to the Heritage Rail Trail West, as I'll refer to it. This is the downtown rail trail that travels mostly through the Tree Streets area and provides a critical pedestrian, bicycle, and other connectivity and also public space directly in the Tree Streets, and also connects it, of course, to the Main Street corridor. Depending upon the time of year, the corridor has anywhere from 250 to 1,000 users per day. Again, that's very dependent upon weather. But not only are folks using it to traverse from place to place, it's actually a community gathering space. I certainly don't need to tell you that, Alderman Lopez, but it's really a public park in a sense in the way that it's used by many of Nashua's most vulnerable populations. And so that usage is particularly critical, and we hope it's enhanced in the future by an extension to the east. This specific project is actually to replace 12 interpretive signs that are located along the trail, particularly at the intersections of the trail and a variety of public streets that cross it. These signs include a few different pieces of information. One is related to sort of the history of the trail and how it was put together, the tremendous community effort that resulted in it being constructed. And then the more critical piece is that these signs contain information related to the guidelines and sort of usage rules related to the trail to make sure that it stays a safe environment for folks to use during all times of day, of course, and all times of the year. Currently, the signs that are located along the trail are sort of in the joint care, I would say, of community development, who played a big role in the project being done, and Parks and Recreation to the Division of Public Works. It's sort of a middle ground of responsibility, and so that's why it's not been something, to replace the signs is not something that's been budgeted in prior fiscal year budgets, and that's why it's before you this evening. However, several of the signs have been damaged, whether by acts of vandalism, unfortunately, or just general wear and tear since the trail was created back in 1999. So they are much in need of repair. And our request this evening is simply to replace the signs, those 12 that are located along it. You'll see that the cost estimate includes two figures. One is $6,600 for the signs themselves to be replaced, and then for the replacement of some sponsorship signage. What I'm proposing is to cover the sponsorship sign cost in my community development budget because I have those funds available to me. But the $6,600 for the signs themselves, the true and earnest signs, that is a CDBG fund request before you this evening. I'll just close by saying that from an eligibility perspective, no question, as evidenced in Manager Long's review, being this in some of the lowest income census tracts in the state of New Hampshire, this project, of course, does qualify. And again, I think that ensuring that the safe and secure use of this space is critical for many, many years to come. Having these signs in place to clearly convey the rules of the trail is a continued community priority, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee might have.
Anyone have any specific questions?
I do.
Alderman Timmons.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. One of the things the signs are $125 each, the signs? At a cost of $6,600?
So Alderwoman Timmons, that's actually the sponsorship signs. Those are the signs that I'm proposing to cover out the community development budget. The signs are $550 a piece, and that includes materials and time, of course.
Okay.
All right, any other further questions?
Actually,
Alderman Thibodeau.
thank you. So this is to replace existing signs?
That's correct.
So are they just dilapidated, vandalized? What's the status of those
A
signs?
couple of them are covered in white supremacy tags.
That's no good.
Nope.
That's one example. Several of them are vandalized. I would also say that they're 20 years into sort of a composite sign material, so they've just started to sort of wear with the sun and all the different elements hitting them. They've stood up pretty well, and that's why we're fairly confident that a replacement of what's there will do okay for a couple decades. But generally, it's sort of this uncontrollable idea of vandalism. And so the question I thought I'd get tonight, that's a tough one, is this sort of graffiti resistant in any way? And the answer is No. It's not. Graffiti-resistant materials they're very expensive, and frankly, they can be vandalized nonetheless, even if they are in fact intended to be graffiti-resistant. So we've not pursued that as part of this request. So it's very possible that these could be put out and they could again be vandalized. We're hopeful that's not the case. Generally, the infrastructure of the rail trail has been very well respected by those that are using it and those that live in the surrounding area. So I would say we're betting a bit on that continued respect of this space, but I feel relatively confident that will persist. And I think we're also betting on the idea that through different mural projects and other things that are being contemplated for this section of the rail trail, I think there's going to be some improvement to this space that will result in those signs being a little better taken care of moving forward.
Thank you.
Alderman Timmons.
I do have another question regarding the signs. Can we do a deterrent, like put some cameras up?
That's a great question. I believe there may be cameras in a few locations closer to City Hall or Alderwoman Timmons, but I don't know that there are cameras further out. Part of that has been trying to be respectful of not being too obtrusive into the neighborhood and the usage of the trail, but I could certainly talk to Parks and Rec. I don't think I can commit this evening to having more cameras installed, but I do think that idea of being in the public space is really important. One thing I will say, though, and I think I can sort of hear Director Hannum in my mind as I say this, is that one thing that we really need to work on along the trail is better lighting. That's something that the trail is really lacking, and so I haven't spoken to Public Works about this prior to this conversation, but rather than moving in the direction of having sort of that surveillance, although it's helpful, I think investing in lighting along the trail is a more immediate and smarter investment for the city to make, and certainly I could speak to Director Photo and the Superintendent of Parks about the option of bringing that forward as part of the next budget.
Yeah, it's just a safety issue.
Sure.
As well. It's not, it's not the intrude on homeowners and stuff like, but it's the safety issue. And I know some of our parks do not have cameras, and we need to have cameras everywhere.
Fair enough, yeah.
There's also a management issue. I mean, there's adequate lighting probably up to Pine Street, and then it really starts to taper off to the point where there isn't any on the far end. But there's also trees that will grow and they'll block, and their branches will block the light, and then you have dark spots even like over by Walnut Street. So that's part of it, but then also I think bringing up overall maintenance of it, improving the murals and all that kind of stuff would collectively create more attention to the space, more use of the space in a positive way, and more sense that people should have a sense of propriety. So positive space usage.
Yeah, agreed.
Alderman Senate.
Thank you. You'd mentioned at the start of your remarks that that historically the care of these signs has been sort of a joint effort between your department and the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the anticipation going forward?
I would say, Alderman Senate, I think the answer is yes. We've worked tremendously well to identify issues and have them rectified. I think it would be unfair of me to say that I do have some questions about the viability of that long term. I think it's always better when an asset is in the care and custody of one department so that someone knows who to contact when there's an issue. That said, our partnership has actually been tremendous. You know, community development is limited in the sense that we do not have the laborers or the expertise to actually go out and do construction. You definitely don't want me out there taking care of anything along the rail trail. We'd be in big trouble then. And so the partnership has worked where we've provided some level of sort of granting funding access, some management oversight, but worked to have the labor executed through Parks and Rec. I would say that's a fine model for the time being, but I think maybe in the future, as particularly the east side of the rail trail is built out and contemplated, which we now have funding for, I think there probably should be a larger conversation about who that asset belongs to, just to ensure that it maintains, or that it remains well maintained into the future. But our current approach has worked successfully to date. It may just be need of a further conversation in the future.
I'm glad to hear that, that would be a topic for conversation going forward, because I know, just as your resources are, strained to an extent, I know that Parks and Recreation only has so many folks that they have to work with the number of parks that they have to maintain, so.
And I would just comment, we've worked very closely on a couple other initiatives in the tree streets with the Parks and Rec Department. I think we've recognized the strengths and weaknesses of both sides of the house, if you will. And so I think we'll be working together no matter what. But I think clear ownership and point of contact for the public is what's important, and I think that the Rail Trail East will really force that conversation upon us at the right time.
Definitely. Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Any further questions from the committee? Mr. Clerk?
Right, next up,
Thank you.
Gateways Community Services.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Michelle Beanie, and I am the Director of Development at Gateways Community Services. I've been there since June, so be kind. I am here today to speak about, well, let me just give you a quick overview of Gateways. We serve nearly 3,000 children and adults with various disabilities, acquired brain disorders, children with autism, and the elderly that are in need of long-term care. We've been here for over 40 years in the Nashua area, and we've profoundly impacted the community in those that we serve. And I'm here today to discuss, we also own various properties, and we own 4 properties in Nashua. And the particular property that I'm here today is about 33 Atherton Ave. And just a side note, you know, we do value the contributions that CBD has made in the past. Actually, this particular property, we received funding for a fence. We had a runner at this property, and a fence needed to be put in. This particular property serves 3 individuals with developmental disabilities, and it is run by Summit. They rent from Gateways. They also have a staff there 24/7. So currently they have a shower that is leaking, which has caused rotten floors, mildew, possible subfloor damage as well. And most of the mold is behind the toilet. So Gateways, you might see in the packet, had received a quote back in May of 2023, and the cost to fix all this was around $13,400. And you know, to echo what Kim from Plus Company had said, you know, it's very difficult to find funding sources for capital improvements. So we would have to tap into our fundraising dollars, which are used for our programs like the Autism Center, our Adult Day Center, et cetera. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the committee inferred that when we say we have a runner, it means one of the group home members leaves, and that's kind of problematic for your organization. It's got to be difficult to balance the rights of the individual against keeping them safe, especially when you have things that are complicated like guardians and that kind of thing.
Yes, yeah. So we're very appreciative of CBDG that, you know, gave us those funds to put in a fence to protect that individual.
Can you describe, just because I'd asked Plus Company, the eligibility and you know, maybe referral process?
That is a good question that I'm not completely articulate on because I really don't work in that area, but I think it's very similar to Plus Company, the eligibility requirements.
Alderman Senate.
I had a question about the facility in question at Atherton. You mentioned that it serves 3 individuals with developmental disabilities. Is this a sort of like an independent living setup for adults, or I'm just trying to get
Yes, they are adults and their staff. It's a ranch home.
Okay.
They have staff, and it's staffed 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
So Summit runs it, and basically they rent from Gateways
Okay.
the property.
So it's just it's set up as a facility where they can be housed, served, all
Yes.
sort of in one central location.
Correct,
Okay.
yes, with 24/7 care and, yes.
Fantastic.
Alderman Timmons?
I'm not trying to pick on you, okay, but I've never seen an application that wasn't really completed. So
Okay.
my question is, like, the total of low income and the 50%, of AMI, you had 0, and moderate income, you have 0. I never seen, plus, Director Long can probably give me some feedback on why is it 0. I've never seen a application that had 0 in that particular category. So can Director Long explain that, why it was accepted?
Well, I know our, our individuals that are there are a low income, but, I thought there was 30% AMI, but, I'm not sure, but that was I could get back to you on that.
Director Long,
Well,
can you answer that for me, please? Thank you.
Good evening. So the application lists 3 individuals to be served. I do believe it mistakenly puts them in 3 different places for 30%, 50%, and 80%. However, there is a category in CDBG of presumed benefit clientele, categories of people that the CDBG regulations allow you to just presume are low to moderate income. Severely disabled adults fit in that category and would be classified that way.
Okay. So, follow up, if I may?
Yep.
So in essence, you don't have to fill out that particular piece in there. So can we just put something in that category if that's the case?
So there's a chart of, if you're using the presumed benefit, of what income level they are. I don't have it memorized, so I don't want to speak out of turn of where severely disabled adults would fit. It's either extremely low or low.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to put you on the spot.
Oh, no, that's okay.
All right, any other further questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Thibodeau.
That's all right. Thank you. Much to similar question that I asked for the soup kitchen. Reached out for community outreach for the things that you need assistance with. And I understand that sometimes you have to reach out for funds as well. But community outreach for volunteers to help with certain projects. I'm just curious if that is done, if it was done, and if it is typically done.
It has not been done, and I believe it is not typically done, but that's an excellent point that you make. That can bring back to the team.
Any follow-up?
I'm good. Nope.
Was that waving your hand?
No, that's a hand, that's a hand, my left hand is that.
A little bit of oomph into
One
it.
more question, okay. On the application, it says, do you currently collect statistics regarding race, ethnicity, income level, household size, sex, gender of your client? And you wrote no, but then you did not say no, but we plan to do so. No, and we anticipate difficulties in doing so. I just no, and that doesn't mean anything to me.
Well, I don't know, internally, I think it's, I'm not sure.
That is an interesting point.
I think currently Gateways is not collecting those statistics, but I think it's something that they are looking to do.
Okay, so if you would have said no, but we plan to do so, I think I wouldn't have had that question.
Okay.
The process of data collection and management, like you obviously have a census of people who are there. You probably have specific medical files that are associated to them, treatment plans and all that kind of stuff. But this wouldn't be like, say, the soup kitchen where you have a homeless management information system and, federal grants that depend on regular reporting of that kind of data?
Yeah, especially with this particular home that we're just renting the space, so to Summit, so they probably have, all that data on the individuals that are there.
And the funding source for it isn't like based out of public housing or, permanent supportive housing or something like that, to your knowledge?
No.
Okay. So maybe some interesting data available, may not. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for your coming to present.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for the work you guys are doing.
Next up is Mary Sweeney Home.
Mary Sweeney Home actually contacted me and asked if they could present in the future. We'll have to check in with Urban Manager Long. They have made an effort to reach out to different committee members. So to that end, we'll have to take that up when it's possible.
Okay. Then next up is Public Works Division.
Good evening. I do have a presentation, that's the one up there. So if we can just get it, I do have the clicker, that'd be most appreciative.
We can go forwards and backwards, just make sure you give your name and.
Yep,
all that for
absolutely.
the record.
So while it's loading up, Mark Saunders, Deputy City Engineer, I'm here on behalf of Public Works. I think Director Sullivan said it perfectly. It is strange as we are competing for these funds and hearing these other projects. It's great work. However this committee decides, I think will be an improvement to the city of Nashua. But I am here for the Ledge Street pedestrian safety enhancements. So our request is to install rectangular rapid flashing beacons along the Ledge Street corridor closest to the school. That would be 7th, 10th, and 12th Street. These will be at mid-block crossings. A mid-block crossing is a crosswalk location that does not have any stop controls, such as a traffic light or a stop sign. What is a rectangular rapid flashing beacon? It is a pedestrian activated button that increases driver yield rates. Federal Highway came out and said that it's up to 98% for driver yielding to pedestrians in that crosswalk, as well as it bolsters a crash reduction of 47%. So I kind of gave you the where and the what. This is the why. So the National Regional Planning Commission put together a comprehensive study for the Ledge Street School. They went in the classrooms. They asked the teachers. They asked the students. They asked the parents. Ledge Street is a walking school. It's within a mile of that school. They're not eligible for busing. That is my understanding. Even with that criteria, the majority of students are still being carpooled or driven to school. They're not utilizing the sidewalks. So in those classrooms, in the study that NRPC put on, one of the concerns that the parent raised was dangerous crosswalks and speeding. A part of that study, they did have a engineering solutions, and one of those were these flashing pedestrian devices. Cost, schedule, and deployment. So this cost is for the actual rapid flashing beacon itself. The Division of Public Works will go in, will install it, will also rebuild the sidewalk to make it ADA compliant along these mid-block crossings. The cost for these, each assembly, which is 2 units, costs $10,000, so our ask for the 3 locations would be $30,000. As for deployment, the lead time is several weeks. With this just being a materials purchase, that can happen rather quickly. As for construction, I do have it here for summer of '24. Since we are working around the school zone, we would like to see the school let out before actual construction along the sidewalks would take place. Hearing from everyone else, I know there's limited funding. I would like to say that this program or this application is scalable. There's other locations throughout the city that this could be utilized in that community development zone. For example, it'd be Temple Street. With that, I'm happy to answer any comments or questions.
Oh, I'm gonna raise my hand. I can't call myself. So in terms of scalability, you were pointing out that this is something we probably have to do in more locations than just the 3.
It is. There Federal Highway put out a wonderful kind of task kind of cheat sheet of different countermeasures at different locations, whether it be a raised median, curb bump outs, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, even so far as a hawk system, which is along Charlotte Ave. You'll see one of those out there. From the division, we do get requests for these. We don't have the funding to implement where we want to put them. They are kind of popping up through the city. We have applied for some federal funding. We have a project coming down, the STEP program, which is the Safe Transportation for Every Pedestrian. That focuses on the downtown core, which is Factory Street, Kinsley Street, the rail trail. So that there's other areas will make ADA accessible as well as improve pedestrian safety. Absolutely, these can be used elsewhere in the city. Most recently, I think everyone's been on Main Street. Those were installed several years ago. I think they're every time I drive the road, I see them flashing and drivers yielding. So they are proven, and they are making a comeback and helping with pedestrian safety.
As a regular pedestrian, professional pedestrian, you might say, I have actually been told by my also regular Uber drivers that they expect to see those lights, and it actually throws them off now if people try to cross without them. So they're definitely visible, and they're definitely doing what they're supposed to do on Main Street. As the alderman for Ward 4, that has been an issue that has never really gone away, and we've tried many different traffic calming measures. We've tried having National PD put speed traps in, monitor them. It is not necessarily just because of the school that being there. The Boys and Girls Club is also located there. There's a huge number of people trying to use that road for the same thing, right around when school lets out, when Boys and Girls Club lets out, and when everyone decides that the one-way street that cuts Nashua in half on West Hollis is not, desirable to them if they want to use Kinsley Street to go downtown or whatever. So there's a lot of people using the same area, and then in addition to there being the Lead Street School, there are several elderly housing programs and public housing programs which have a lot of pedestrians that are using that area. If the committee were to support partial funding, do you have a ranking system for which ones on Lead Street you would scale to if you had enough for one or two?
We would have to go and revisit that. I would say with the school being the focus of this request, I'd want to see if certain locations are staffed with guards and how that pertained over the last several years, and try to put one of these at a more vulnerable location. It is best practice to keep the corridor, keep the devices similar in the corridor so that drivers expect to see what they're going to see, instead of having one at 10th Street and then nothing at 12th Street, but they're both mid-block crossings. You want to kind of keep that consistency along that roadway so that drivers expect what they're expected. But we definitely can have a smaller purchase, and we can roll it out. Anything is if it's an incremental improvement, it's still an improvement, and that's why we're here requesting the funding.
And in addition to identifying all the amenities over in that area that are competing for use, there's also a number of sports fields and athletics fields and Heritage Rail Trails. So it's very regular to see people going down, I think probably 11th Street, right where the trail ends out, or even 7th Street, you can kind of go down a little ramp. And so all summer, you'll see people going back and forth, trying to use those different facilities. Any other committee members have?
Oh, thank you, Chairman Lopez. He said most of the things I was going to say anyway.
I had to.
Yeah. Thank you very much, because it's needed, and he's absolutely right. You got a lot of things over there. You got not just the school, you got the parks, you got the Boys and Girls Club, you got people speeding down the hill, going fast. I know, because I was always over at district office, which is there as well. So to try to cross the street is dangerous. And so, thank you. I mean, it's about time, Chairman Lopez, that you kind of push this. Did you put?
Somebody
not,
prioritize people who live in the neighborhood versus everyone driving through it?
This is what we need in that. That is really an area that definitely need that sort of. Especially on 11th Street, right there where the kids cross, because there's a housing development over there, and there's a lot of kids in that area, and they died across the street, but the kind of speed down the hill past this street, past that street going up towards now Monahan Manor area. So yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Senate.
Yeah, not to pile on too much what Alderwoman Timmons was just saying, but I definitely agree that this is a much-needed program. You'd mentioned earlier that you had something attuned to a roadmap throughout the city of where these could be prioritized and regularly utilized. Does that include most of the walking schools throughout the city?
That table I referred to earlier, that's vehicle speed, number of lanes, so any road can be applied to that to see best practice. That's what Federal Highway has come out to. Best practice can always be superseded by engineering judgment. I know we've had a recent one that was just deployed was over on Amherst Street. There was a mid-block crossing there right across from Holman Stadium that connected the Putnam side through Amherst Street, which is a 3-lane road.
Yeah.
And over there, and that was a good use of that, as well as there's been others in the park. If you have any specific questions on specific streets, please, happy to forward your question, and we can look at anything
I have one.
individually.
I definitely was asking selfishly as the alderman for Ward 7 because I think one of the more underappreciated speedways throughout the city is Arlington Street, right as it passes in front of Dr. Crisp. Just last week I saw our very dedicated crossing guards setup got taken out by a flying car who didn't even bother to stop and recognize that they took out a multitude of signs. So thank goodness it wasn't children, but I think that's something that neighborhood would certainly love to see with the school and the community center and the redevelopment of housing that's coming into that neighborhood as well. So I really appreciate the context of this plan. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Any further questions? All right, thank you for presenting.
Okay. Next up is Family Promise of Southern New Hampshire.
Hi, my name is Brian Crawford. I'm the chairman of the Board of Trustees for Family Promise here in Nashua. I think, and thank you for letting us speak to you tonight about this. And also thank you for some previous funding that we've received. It's really important, not only just to get the funding, but that also allows us to leverage funding from other private organizations. So thank you very much. I think many of you are familiar with us. We're an organization that supports homeless families. We currently are in the former Infant Jesus School here in Nashua. Before that, we were in Hudson in a smaller facility. During COVID, we were able to move over here, and it doubled the amount of families that we can help. So we can currently house about 28 families, and it's a program where the people sign a contract, and we assign case managers. They need to have a job or get a job. They need to meet with the case manager. They need to take classes in parenting and financial planning and budgeting, and they need to bank 70% of their take-home pay, and they need to show their pay stubs and their bank statements, and it works. There are actually 3 parts of our program. There's the housing program, which we're most known for, but there are 2 additional ones. One we call supportive housing, where we have partners that lease us apartments at sub-market rates, and then we sublease them. We just pass the money through, and allows people who have some money and aren't homeless, but they can't afford market rates, and it gives them a place to live and prevents them from being homeless. So that's the second leg. The third leg, which is the leg that we're here to talk about tonight, is our diversion and prevention program. It's the biggest need and the fastest growing need that we see right now. Anybody that comes to us, we don't turn away. We either work with other agencies in the city and figure out who's best to help them, or we help them ourselves. If they're not eligible or don't fit into our housing program, we'll work with landlords, we'll work with utility companies, and we'll subsidize them. We saw this last year as such a big need that we actually hired a director, who I'm going to introduce in a minute. So she's our director of diversion and prevention, and we are asking for money to help to subsidize that program. It's an important program, and we hope you can help. And I'd like to introduce Joanne Perez, who's our director of diversion and prevention, and we hired her from the city of Nashua a year ago, and she does a great job.
Hi, all. Good evening. Thank you for having me. Yeah, prevention and diversion. Right now, that's the topic of conversation among all agencies. Preventing eviction. You know, we can build all the housing we want, but if it's not affordable, it's not affordable. So I have been working diligently with other agencies as well. And I brought my numbers for the last 78 days, so January 1st, we have helped 65 total bodies, and out of that was 33 children that slept in their beds and continue to sleep in their beds because of the prevention program. $13,877 of assistance that Family Promise has given. And that was in collaboration with other agencies, partnering agencies that landlords are willing to start to open up and work with me and work with other agencies to save their tenants. Because at the end of the day, they just want to be paid, right? But in 2022, before I was there, diversion and prevention assisted 207 folks. 23, 591. So we're looking over 700 to come up. And we're only in March, and total, the 13,000 I mentioned, that was just in rent alone. That's not counting helping with utilities, some temporary motel assistance, childcare so a mom can get to work, car repair so families can get to work. I work on a very low barrier. There are no eligibility requirements. Your income is, we all have hiccups. We've all been there. So you have that one hiccup and you need just a little bit of help, we're going to help you. It's very rare that I have to say no to somebody, because at the end of the day, that's what we're there for. We raise all our money alone. We do not have any state or federal funding. We do have some state funding for construction, right? But other than that, we raise all our money. And Brian and the board, Pam, the executive director, development team, work really, really hard to campaign for the funds that we have. And it's just, we start at the top, and that's where the prevention comes in. And I do a lot of case management too, working with a lot of people on their budgeting. What can we do different? What are the barriers that are preventing you from paying this rent? Okay, it went up $300, so what can we do to get you that extra $300 and things like that? And just showing the resources. I'm learning new and new resources every single day of what Nashville has to offer, and it's huge. It's huge, and I'm still learning them and trying to pass those on and teach other people that there's a lot out there and they're not alone, and the pride, put it aside a little bit, and that's what it's here for. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Alderman Timmons.
Thank you. Thank you for everything that you did. I did write some notes down on, in my little prior to coming here, securing housing for the underserved. I know you work with the First Church in Nashua. Is it, and I know that Stepping Stone's trying to get housing over at DW, Daniel Webster College. And what are the mechanisms are you using to try to get transitional housing?
Well, I'll let Brian answer that one, seeing as he's the board member. And
We already work with several partners, just like First Church. And,
Yes.
a lot of parishes and congregations have property that aren't being used.
Right.
So they lease them to us. We're always looking for more of those opportunities. And actually, we're looking to buy properties ourselves. This year, we actually had a purchase and sale agreement for a four-family house on Walnut Street. And we were going to just buy it ourselves, and we were talking to Milliard Bank, and they were giving us an interest-only loan with really good terms to try to help out. And the numbers, even with the reduced rents, they could work. They kind of break even, but that's more nonprofits anyway. Unfortunately, the building inspection showed up a lot of structural problems, so that one fell through. But we're actually looking to fundraise and actually purchase our own properties to be able to rent out at sub-market rates. But we've always got our eyes open if you have any ideas.
Mayor? Okay, thank you. As I was coming here, the property that's on Elm Street, that's if you go straight down Elm Street, going towards the school to the left.
Yep.
There's a building that's empty. It's walking distance from here. You know what I'm talking about?
The yellow one?
It's all boarded up
Yeah.
right now.
It's a former bakery.
It's right, it's the house on the corner here on Elm Street, and then it's the next house up, so it's like maybe 2 houses from here. And I was looking at that building, I was like, why we have this buildings in here with underutilized and just boarded up, and I don't know what kind of construction it need and how dilapidated it is inside and
Yeah.
all that, but I thought, what a waste of space that building's sitting there for a long time.
Yeah, we,
And I pass it all the time, so, and it's walking distance, you just walk up the street.
yeah, those are ideal because people can walk downtown to jobs. They don't need a car, so that location is ideal. But I'll take a look, and we've actually engaged with a Realtor in Nashua, who used to be on the board of the soup kitchen, by the way, and he's helping us. He's doing a search to try to find possible locations. Now, we can't rebuild a building, you know, if it's really totally dilapidated, that would really be a problem. We're looking for as low maintenance as
Right,
possible, but we're.
Oh, that's definitely a down to the ground and build up kind of
Oh, yeah.
situation.
Yeah, so.
It has been on
So
fire
it
a
would
few
depend on the
times.
price, you know, if it was for sale for $100,000, maybe we can spend $300,000 or $400,000 refurbishing it, but if they still want $500,000, we can't, you know, it just isn't gonna work, so.
I think that's the building that city welfare was gonna go into at one point in time.
They just wanted the parking lot.
Yeah, and, it was a tear down.
It was too
It was
So if I could speak to that, just because I have been following that thing's existence since I became alderman, I believe there is an effort underway to try to redevelop it, but just for the public's understanding, that's private property, so the property owner has to actually agree to use it for something. I know in the past, he's had a pretty optimistic assessment of its property value, and there have been other organizations that have looked at it and been like, well, this might be something we could look at, and the price is a deterrent, the amenities in the area, and the scope of the project is intimidating. But I do think it's a great idea to start keeping eyes out as elected officials when you have a nonprofit looking for something that they can start building, you know, intervention services off of. And you look at access to things like the bus station and, you know, public health and other downtown amenities. You know, there's a lot of competition for what we use our downtown space for. But, you know, just because a private for-profit might win the short term doesn't mean that the city wins over the long term. So it's definitely a good conversation to have. Any other questions specifically about Family Promise's application here? I was curious, it looks like you're specifically focusing not on any kind of brick and mortar kind of a thing, but a staffing position and then the, I guess, rent assistance?
In this request, yes. We are actually expanding. We've recently purchased a building in Derry, and this year, we're looking for funding, and we think we'll get it to be able to refurbish that, and that'll house 8 additional families. It'll be a second location. So we currently house people from Rockingham County here in Nashua, but if those people go to Derry, then that'll open up more housing that we can help people here in Nashua. So we are doing brick and mortar, but the specific request is for the diversion and prevention program.
With regards to sustainability of a staffing position, how would that be accounted for, given that this is a year-to-year kind of, if HUD gives us money, then we
We'll be
try to
back
figure
next
it
year.
out.
No, we are getting other funding from other people to help subsidize this position. In the beginning, we did just fund it because we saw the need was so much. We just kept getting calls constantly, and we didn't staff the position. Everybody was just doing it. So we did go ahead and hire in advance, but so far we've been fortunate to get the funding, and we're confident we'll get it one way or another in the future. We're going through our budgeting right now, just like most organizations are, and it's actually tough because everything's gotten more expensive. So this is the first year that we're looking at a small deficit in our budget, but we always find a way. Pam tells us, you know, you just say a prayer and the money comes from somewhere. We don't know where, but it'll come.
Well, and to that point, that might sound a little bit like unusual to people more focused on the for-profit, but virtually every major program we've had started out with, well, there's a need, we need to address it and figure it out. You know,
Yep.
stepping stones, even the soup kitchen in its earlier days, we wouldn't have the expanded facilities and larger programs we have now if they hadn't started with, we have to do this, and then we have to figure out how.
Yep.
But with that, is Family Promise, it was my impression they were part of a larger collaborative?
It's a national organization, Family
Okay.
Promise, yeah.
Mhm.
We,
Because it says Family Promise of Southern New Hampshire, but I thought you guys were like the biggest, or
the
one of them.
Family Promise National is, yeah, so
Okay.
we're not a subsidy, we're not owned by them, we're just affiliated with them. And it does help, they get us, for example, we buy mattresses, we buy tens of thousands of mattresses, and we all get a great deal because we buy them through the national organization, things like that. They also have state-of-the-art software that we can use, best practices, things like that. But we, as far as budgeting and as far as organization, we are our own organization.
I know you're regular participants in the Continuum of Care.
Yes.
The Anne Marie House used to participate in HMIS. Do you guys report to that as well?
Ms. Pam, our executive director.
I knew I'd have to come up.
Sorry.
Hi, I'm Pamela, I'm the Executive Director for Family Promise. We are not state or federally funded, but we have signed voluntary waiver and do participate in HMIS entry. We have for many years. And also our salary for the position and the sustainability is what we've been able to leverage because of our own fundraising efforts for diversion prevention. We've been able to leverage a national grant from our national office that we receive annually, which is $25,000 because we're able to, and then we have to match it, so we're able to sustain the position. Joanne last year served 591, as she said, individuals and families, and that was about $65,000 that we had to raise privately to be able to then give back to the community and keep these families from eviction and prevent homelessness. So that's how the whole thing works. And then again, we are part of a national organization. Family Promise National is in Summit, New Jersey. We have over 240 affiliates in 45 states. And one huge piece of our diversion prevention program that is such a blessing being part of a national affiliate is that, say a family comes from Florida, they find themselves in Nashua, New Hampshire because they were looking for a better way of life, and everyone said, go to New Hampshire, right? And
Yeah.
we know how
Money
that
Magazine,
works
they
out.
were reading it?
Yeah.
And then it doesn't work out for them. They have no family, they have no jobs, they've got nothing to hold on to, they're sleeping in their cars. We all know the story, we all work in this space. We're able to reach out to our national affiliates in Florida and get them sent back there if that's where they want to be. So it's just a great program. We probably have, before I hired Joanne, I was doing the diversion and prevention work, and I helped about 14 families nationally in about 3 or 4 years get back to where they needed to be so they could be with family, and they had other resources and other people, just the warmth of knowing that they had people that they knew around them. So that's how we work nationally, and it's such an advantage, not just to us, but to our communities that we serve in too.
So to the point about HMIS, Alderman Timmons, the question you asked earlier about data collecting and reporting does cover all of those different ethnicities and identities. And then my question to you guys is, if we weren't able to provide full funding, would it be advantageous to you from a grant purpose to have the city be a contributing member? Do you receive other money from other areas of the city?
From other areas in the city for diversion prevention?
Well, as an organization, for example, CAC or the mayor's office?
We do.
Okay.
We do through the CAC. We receive funding annually.
Okay.
I have one.
Alderman Timmons?
Something you brought up nationally. Your board of directors, do you have a local board of directors or a national board? How's that board of director work? Both national board of, okay.
Family Promise of Southern New Hampshire, and each individual affiliate in each state has their own local board. But then Family Promise National does have a national board.
Okay.
We don't report to them, they don't govern us, but they're just a great resource. They trust us to. Family Promise's mission is based on 2 principles, interfaith and volunteerism. We're not a religious organization. We happen to be founded by Faith Homes 45 years ago in Summit, New Jersey. So, but that's where our volunteerism comes from, right? And just the congregational support. It's just such a blessing to any nonprofit, and we should all be, supported by Faith Homes. But in any case, those are the 2 principles. So as long as we're upholding those with grace and the integrity of Family Promise National, they trust us to design the program that works best in our community. And we have Family Promise out at Seacoast, which has been there for 20 years. We're in our 22nd year. Then we have a small affiliate in Concord, and I'm helping to open another affiliate in Laconia. We should be open by the fall in Laconia, so we're very excited about that because it's such an area of need. In this whole area, we all know that we get so many calls from the Lakes region, and you know, we just get bombarded because we have such great resources here and in Manchester that hopefully that'll alleviate and help to have us more efficiently serve our residents here in Greater Nashua.
So to the point of a faith origin, as I said earlier, someone has to start, someone has to see the need and do it. And often faith communities tend to have at least some rudimentary infrastructure for getting like-minded people together, getting resources and that kind of stuff. When I was at Revere University, the Sisters of the Presentation Mary presented to us and said, okay, so the Interfaith Coalition in Nashua has been having, I think it was they were sharing either monthly or weekly rotating church basements to meet the overwhelming homelessness need that was being presented. And so the sisters were trying to get student input on, do they want to use the Sisters of the Presentation Mary facilities in order to kind of add some more permanence to that. And then, so there is that component of it, but that, at least locally, but it didn't stay there. It's definitely not like run by the Catholic Church or anything like that. The organization, as you're describing it, is a 501c3, has a board of directors, has been very integral to our community and has been working with families since its inception. Is that a fair summary?
Yes,
Yes,
that's
it is.
absolutely true.
That is us.
And that's how we started. We actually rented the building for the Presentation of Mary. But then they needed the building because PMA and Methuen closed, so we ended up homeless ourselves, and that's how we got involved.
You were nimble though, and you kept your eyes on the
Honestly,
mission.
And fortunately, we were able to do all that during COVID. We got the building, we refurbished the building all during COVID.
Just to make sure all your commentary is captured, you might want to be near the microphone
Oh,
because
sorry.
it is being broadcast, so it looks like I'm talking to some guy. And hopefully our transcriber's picking all that up. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Just real quickly
Alderman
before, at capacity, how many families are you able to serve in the old Infant Jesus building?
About 28 families, depending on the configuration of the families, but roughly 28.
Are you utilizing the whole building?
We are.
Okay.
It's 100 people is capacity.
And that's also not limited to just single moms, it's intact families, single dads, aunts, there's no age restriction. So it's a pretty diverse community, and we're able to grab those people that other agencies may not be able to have the capacity to grab.
No, I really appreciate that because, you know, I think everybody has a picture of family in their mind, but it's certainly not a paint by numbers dynamic. You know, families look like a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and so I really appreciate your willingness to recognize the diversity of that and to you know, facilitate those services that you do.
Thank you.
If you don't mind me saying, very unique to the Greater Nashua area is how collaborative we are. All the nonprofits, we all share a piece of the pie, and we stay in our own lanes, because you can't be everything to everyone, and at the same time, nobody's good enough on their own. So we all do our own pieces really well and work together really well, and it's one of the most collaborative communities I've ever had. I'll be the ED for 10 years in April, and it's just amazing to me how wonderfully collaborative the Greater Nashua area is. It's a joy to work here. It's a joy to exist here and to serve here for all of us, so.
That's
I wanna
good, because
thank
you're
you
really,
all
really
for
needed.
that.
Absolutely.
No,
We would like you to
really-
stay.
What?
I said your work is very, very needed. We would like you to stay, so
Thank you.
thank you for your work.
Thank you so much.
All right, any further questions? All right, seeing none, we will move on.
Thank you.
I think we are at the last.
Yeah, last but not least
Economic Development Director?
is Economic Development Division.
Liz Hannum, Economic Development Division Director. I will also preface that I didn't realize that we would be competing against nonprofits. So for city projects, the other communities that I've worked in have only done city projects with CDBG money, which is why I'm prefacing this because I applied for 2 projects.
So I applied for a project that would be essentially a commercial real estate study in our corridors that would basically figure out what properties are underutilized, how to use them, and then prioritize the areas of blight that would be kind of our priority development areas within the corridors. Particularly, I looked at the Imagine Nashua master plan, and those 7 locations were kind of where we were going to focus this. So that would hopefully help build some wealth in those community areas as we develop. And the other project is actually a facade improvement program for the downtown and the Tree Streets area. Initially, when I applied, this was a great project to help. I know I've talked a lot about the building stock in the downtown and how much I love it, but that it is in dire need of some love. So this could be a pilot project for that. Since I've applied, I've spoken with our building manager and with our emergency management office and realized that this is not just a fun to have kind of project. This is a dire need. The facades of the buildings in the downtown are actually no longer attached to the building in most places because they've either, the steel or the rebar has eroded, or vibration from the cars and trucks going through have started to move the buildings. I know maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we had a building that the facade just sloughed off, basically.
That one, the one over there at the mayor's office looks at?
Yes, yes. And so that's essentially what we're at risk of for a lot of the buildings in the downtown area. And so I'm realizing how much more dire this need is. And the idea is that we would fund one pilot project that would hopefully incentivize and get people excited about doing the next project and kind of build on that one existing visible project. So those were the 2 projects that I put forward.
So I understood the facade program was one as a pilot. Was the second one?
The second one was the study, the corridor study, commercial real
I
estate
got so
study.
excited about the building falling off.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, obviously, anyone who's been on the committee for more than a year knows this also came up last year. It's come up in the past as well. We kind of deprioritized it, and then a bunch of new property owners came in and said, wait, we do need this kind of stuff. There, obviously, it's not like the CDBG money was ever adequate to all of the needs that we had. So when I say deprioritize, I mean like we ended up like buying a bathroom for the Salvation Army, or paying for, to winterize areas of the National Children's Home. There was always very, very important programs. So, I mean, we definitely recognize that the city staff are always put in a position of having to say like, well, we don't want to compete with the nonprofits. But then we're also the ones who are like, in a month or 2, gonna start going over city budgets, and then we're not gonna be able to fund everything on that side either. So that's the activity of CDBG, is trying to figure out how to make decisions about not enough money being applied to a greater amount of need. So the corridor study is not dissimilar from what Alderman Timmons was talking about and was being described earlier about needing to identify properties that could be used for things, but it doesn't quite go so, it looks like it goes a little further into areas of urban blight. Can you describe what conditions you would be identifying as blighted?
Yeah, so there's an official term for blight, so we would be using that, but we would identify essentially locations that needed additional support or redevelopment because of either misuse or underutilization, or things like trash buildup, just kind of eyesores is how I would describe blight.
Okay. Any comments or questions to the committee? Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes, such as this.
Alderman Thibodeau. I called on him because he's there.
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
We start with Tiz,
I'm
so I
sorry.
mean, yeah.
If that T came in and I didn't hear the rest of it.
I understand.
Okay, go ahead.
how many buildings are we talking about that have this facade issue, that are city-owned buildings? And I'm assuming these are all just city-owned buildings?
Nope.
No, none of them are. So this would be working with private entities. According to the emergency management study, it's about 60% of the properties, and almost all of the brick buildings are at risk of this sloughing. So the non-brick buildings are a little less at risk. So we would try to hit some of the more at-risk buildings with this one pilot project.
For that additional context, Alderman Thibodeau, the building over there that we were talking about is the other half of the 7-star building. Like there's the whiter one and then there's the brick one. And that's all residential housing. Underneath, they haven't rented out anything down there past the Chinese restaurant for a while. And the front section of the building a couple of years ago fell off.
Right.
They had to evacuate the whole building, and we had a huge displacement event and we had to work with them, and even fixing the thing, they had to put their scaffolding and everything into the street and all that. So it's definitely a scenario where, if we had unlimited funds, it would be, we definitely don't want to let that happen. It is the private, individual's responsibility to make sure it doesn't, and then when they don't, it becomes everybody's problem.
Yeah, and talking with the building manager, this is every single day when trucks go by, they're creating more of an issue. And so it's kind of an inevitability at some point. What that point is, we don't know, but it is a dire need.
Alderman Timmons.
Yeah, just a comment, because you made a good point as well. I hate walking on that side street, by the way, because that happened. So I'm very much in favor of safety. That did happen, and I was like mortified that somebody was standing under that and got caught up in that stuff. It was horrible. So we need to look at that, especially the 7-star.
So there's definitely a code enforcement aspect, but for this program that we would be funding, they also have to apply for it and be willing to do it.
Right.
That's correct, because that's not necessarily a given. Just because the program's there doesn't mean the landlord's going to use it. But to your point also, we are in the middle of building NeighborWorks, and everybody who's living on that side is going to walk right under all that. So hopefully they fortified everything at this point.
Yeah, so this would be a voluntary program that we would work with a private property owner. We don't own any of these buildings, so it would be kind of first come, first serve. And ideally, we would have a very visible project that would then kind of incentivize the next project to happen.
Do you have anyone in mind?
There's quite a few.
None of them rhyme with
potentials.
Arthas?
I'm sorry?
I said none of them rhyme with Arthas?
I'm going to leave it there.
Okay. Pleading the fifth is always available. I'm just thinking of the largest brick building I can think of. Other than 100 Main Street, which has, again, a lot of other housing in it too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely good cases to be made for this kind of thing. That wouldn't fall under any, like particularly the ones that rent to people. The renter occupied dwellings.
I'm not sure, actually. I don't know much about that program, but it's something that I can certainly look into to see if we can supplement or do a second project through that as well.
It might be more Alderman Sullivan's question. Or Alderman Sullivan, Director Sullivan's question. Which he doesn't have to answer now at this time. That's fine. I was just wondering if there's other, we ask everyone else, is there another way to pay for this? So if there's another city program.
Well, I have lots of money in community development, well, I think, so the question, if I understand it, is whether or not properties that have renters occupying them have access to, what program specifically?
Facade stabilization or anything like that, if it were gonna impact their unit.
Not through the city. I think the closest thing would actually be some of the funding that Manager Long has access to, but it would not be applicable in the situation that you're talking about. I think there are also two ways to think about a facade program. There's sort of the owner receiving the benefit by having a substantial modification to the facade itself, and then there's this other way that the city has done it. We've talked about it at some length in the past, and that is the idea that the tenant themselves having the ability to demonstrate that they meet the low to moderate income threshold. and therefore a store owner or a business owner then has access to the funding. One obviously is more structural, that's the property owner having access, whereas the aesthetic piece is much more aimed at the tenant. But I know that Director Hannum is really looking for that structural improvement support with this program because of this emergent issue along Main Street related to facade stability. So I don't see an immediately accessible source of funds for the facade program other than CDBG right now. In fact, I think I presented this program last year, the year before. We had a discussion at that time that there really wasn't a good pot of funds available to do this right now within the city's existing budget. So this is, fortunately or unfortunately, this is where we've come for these monies in the past and where we're coming for them today.
Okay, that's a great summary, thanks. Oh, Alderman Kelly.
Thank you. So facade improvement sounds very expensive. How many projects could you fund with this money?
That would
be
One.
One.
Yes, so this would be a pilot project, and it would hopefully start to incentivize other property owners to think about doing it as well. Yes, it is on the expensive side, and the property owner would also have to put a significant investment in as well. So this is not a all for this money. So.
Thank you.
Alderman
So,
Yu, Senate.
Alderman Yu, thanks. So if this were to be funded, you'd probably find yourself in a similar situation to what we're at right now with applicants coming to you saying, pick me, pick me. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. Yeah, so we would have an application process and figure out who is the most visible project, as well as there would be eligibility requirements based on CDBG, whether that's, as Director Sullivan said, the tenant qualifies or the property owner qualifies. So we'd have to figure out which one of those, they'd have to be eligible first before they could apply.
Follow up? Yeah. Not to put you on the spot, but in terms of that prioritization, would you be prioritizing visibility over need?
No.
Okay.
But I think that they're kind of hand in hand, honestly. I think that there's definitely extreme need in multiple locations, but I think it's a combination of who's willing to work with us, and how do we kind of make it visible that it does kind of incentivize that next round of funding and that next group that invests in their space. So it's a combination of a lot of things, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like you'd be looking for the balancing act between
prioritizing
the buildings that might be the greatest safety hazard with the buildings that could also be the best pitch for the program.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Over here.
Alderman Kelly.
I have another really specific question, so people are gonna love me. So I have a question, I don't know if I asked this last year. It's a risk question. So if the building, I know I'm looking at you, if the building falls and hurts someone, like Alderman Timmons, is the city at risk because it's a public walkway, or is it on the property owner?
I think honestly it's both.
I think it's
I think that risk would probably tell you that it's primarily on the property owner, and then there may be some liability on the city, but not much. I would say that they could sue, but I wouldn't see them winning.
Obviously not a scenario I'm looking forward to, but just.
Yes.
It's our fire department that's gonna end up responding in the middle of the night and
This is true.
figuring out whether we found everybody, managed to place them in our already overstretched homeless, outreach kind of situation, and then our building department has to drop what it's doing, figure that out, and then figure out plans for directing traffic and everything. So our city's gonna deal with it, whatever happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can get you a definitive answer on that, but that's my kind of.
I figured it was a specific question.
Yeah.
So you did great.
Okay, good.
And anybody injured will probably personally call the mayor, and it's his fault as
Mhm.
well. Any other questions from the committee?
Okay, all
All right.
right, thank you.
So question and answer session, I think we did most of that.
Yeah.
I think we did it live.
Yep. And then review and recommendations. Urban Manager Long, do you want to walk us through our expectations here?
Do we need to take up that motion again before we?
Probably.
Yeah, that's why he
Yeah,
said
I might as
we
well
could
do
do
that.
All right, well, I
But
will,
Before we do that,
okay,
let's have him tell us.
all right.
First, I just wanted to see if, I was not sure if anyone was here for the question and answer session.
We kind of asked them as we went.
Well, it could be the public. Anyone? Is that what you had in mind, Urban Manager Long? This would be also public question?
No, any of the applicants.
Oh, so the applicants were supposed to ask questions, too. That would have been good to introduce.
No, that was added in case anyone, especially anyone who presented at your February meeting. I didn't think anyone was here for the question and answer, but I just wanted to double check.
Okay. All right, so with regards to our timeline here, you're looking for us to rank and recommend these tonight, and then what's the rest of the process look like?
Yes, so ideally, you will make your recommendations tonight. From there, I will incorporate them into the annual action plan, which will be posted to the city website. Then I will publish a notice for a public comments period and public hearing to be held in April for the general public to give their thoughts on the funding recommendations. From there, we're looking at approval of the funding and the annual action plan at the first May meeting for the Board of Aldermen.
Okay, so definitely ideally was the word used there, and I don't think we should hold it up for this particular purpose, but I had thought, from my own recollection, we had talked about March and April for presentations, so I know Mary Sweeney Home had reached out and said they wouldn't be able to present, and then they were engaging different members of the board, and I had told them they might be able to present on that. Would that work in this, or is that going to mess up with the public timeline?
It means the timeline has to be pushed back. Generally, that would not be possible. We do have a little bit of flexibility in terms of we have not yet received our grant allocation, and we actually can't submit our action plan until we do receive the grant allocation.
Okay. Alderman Kelly.
My question was going to be around that. I know you had talked about building contingencies so we can start to figure this out before the allocation comes in. Did you want to talk a little bit about how we could work on that?
Yes. I also will say that Mary Sweeney is not the only agency that had a potential conflict, and all agencies were given the 2 meeting dates. They had an opportunity to present. In terms of contingencies, there's a variety of possibilities. You can, when you make your recommendations, you can say, if we receive more funding, here's what we're going to do. If we receive less funding than we have estimated, here's what we're going to do. You can do it based on percentages. You can do it in dollar amounts. It's really whatever you think is best.
Yes.
Urban Manager Long, I'm going to say this loud so everyone can hear me. So Urban Manager Long gave us the spreadsheet in the minutes of the meeting. Can we pull that up while we're doing that?
Yeah.
I think I can copy. Okay. That way it'll help us keep track of how much we need to keep in mind.
Yes, if you go to the agenda, if you don't have the link handy, it is in the agenda packet
That's
on the
right.
city
I believe
website.
it's in the agenda packet, yeah.
Yes, and it should even be clickable, so you should just have to click on it.
Chairman,
Alderman Kennedy.
Lopez. Yeah, this is for Manager Long. I have one question. Is that including the Public Works Division? Are we keeping that in, or are we taking that out? What are we doing with the Public Works as part of the CDBG application?
Are you referring to the Ledge Street proposed project,
I'm
ma'am?
talking about the Public Works Division that we did not hear. No, wait a minute. Which one we did
We
not hear
heard 2
tonight?
projects from them.
We didn't hear the Mary,
No, I know about the Mary Sweeney. I thought that we was taking something out.
The grant applications.
Wasn't taking anything out, we wasn't taking out the
Thank you.
public works division, right?
I don't think we took anything out yet.
Oh, okay, I mean,
I think we had a
now.
presentation about the signs, which I thought was Public Works.
Okay, yeah, okay, so,
I
all
knew
right.
I'd seen that Excel button. Thank
I'm
you.
in my little, taking that in mind.
I wanted the full list up too, not just so we could keep track of how much we had to deal with, but also, because there was somebody else that, Urban Manager Long had mentioned, and I couldn't remember who it was. Opportunity Networks presented a couple of, in our last meeting, I think, regarding, they were trying to do, an interior vestibule.
Yes.
So that their, residents don't keep the door open while they're trying to come in. I don't think I saw anything about Mary's house.
Yeah, we talked about Mary's house.
Heating upgrades, okay. What's the UPD?
That's urban programs.
Oh, so that's you guys.
Yes, the Mary's House heating upgrades will be found under the front door agency.
Yeah, I think everybody did present then.
Yeah.
Did we hear from Arlington Street?
Can we make the motion so we can
Yeah,
actually?
we did.
We didn't make the motion.
Well,
No,
I
well,
entered it and then
we
withdrew
pulled
it,
it
so
back.
I'll read it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so at this point, I'd like to re-enter my motion to recommend final passage of R 24-022, authorizing the mayor to apply for and expend the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnership Program funds for fiscal year 2025.
All right, we have the motion on the table, now we can have the discussion, use the spreadsheet. We're living in a utopia. Do we have any initial recommendation?
You can't see me, it's fine.
Over here.
Mr. Vaughn, can you give us a quick, I know there's some new people on the, this is their first time doing this. Can you talk through the ones that aren't, we can't change? So there are allocations that are specific to, how we get HUD money, so those have to stay that way, correct?
Yes, so the way that the Community Development Block Grant is structured is that there is a 15% cap on public services funding, and that's going to be your non-bricks and mortar things, which is under the requested PSA column. So that's going to be operating expenses, programming, things of that nature. Also, there is a 20% cap on administrative and planning, and that's going to be their first column after the names of the projects, and that's going to be basically staff salary, benefits, travel expenses, conferences, things like that. And also the Economic Development Department's planning request also fits under that category.
Pull up?
Yep.
So as it is now, where are we with that percentages? If we were to approve it all, I know we have to find about 300,000, but.
So both categories, again, these are dealing with estimates instead of the actual numbers, unfortunately. But both categories, there is more requested than available to allocate. And based on our estimates for administrative and planning, I do currently not anticipate that we will have enough money for the economic development plan, unfortunately.
I'm gonna follow up again, I lied. So, that 100, I hate this night, it's always so hard, because we have to hear everybody's really important needs, and then we have to look at a spreadsheet and decide what numbers we're gonna, hack off, which is not fun.
It's even harder when we don't have a spreadsheet though.
This is true. So the 106, 132, is that 15% of the total programming that you'll be doing down there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
so
has to stay.
that's the full 15%.
Yeah.
And the amount listed for PSA is pardon me, the admin is the full 20% and the PSA is the full 15%. And based on my look at FY25 salary and benefits requirements, we will need the full amount.
Okay, so that 106 cannot move. That's gotta be what it's gotta be.
Yes, please.
Okay. Great. I'm done asking questions for a moment.
Manager Long,
Alderman-
is it possible that you could send that spreadsheet? Because I can't see it. I really can't. That's driving me crazy up there. I can see it right here. Can you just send me that spreadsheet?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Do we need to give you a minute to
Say,
find
would
it?
anybody be dreadfully offended if I actually downloaded this and tried to work it in Excel, because this is just bothering me not having my buttons.
Yeah.
Well, I also
that's a
think
good
we should
idea.
make a copy, just so that it doesn't mess up the online copy.
Well, let's see what we can do here.
And we may wanna put in like
Either copy the
Oh, I
file
can
or
read
copy
it.
the
Yeah.
sheet.
contingency.
You might as well. Let's see if we have the office thing.
That's gonna be the big question. Oh,
Yeah, we do, okay, nothing but the top
What,
tier.
what? Okay, great.
no, this is making the accountant in the room happy now.
Okay, now we're happy.
I can read it, we can take
I'm
crap texting.
going to suggest, Mr. Accountant, that we do our ideal and then do a tab and do, if we get less funding. and
We
if
can
get more
absolutely
funding.
copy this to a new tab.
Yeah, I think that's what we should do.
Alright.
But we can start with the main one.
Make another column. So I would
So you
probably,
want the first one, just so I understand, you would like this one to be our ideal allocation?
Yep. And then the other one would be less funding comes in and more funding comes in.
I'll give you a second to make that, but I'm gonna open with probably suggest making the signs for the rail trail go into the, if we get a whole bunch of extra money category.
It's hard.
That was not
What is
bad.
our deficit? I think it's 300,000.
Can you make it auto total too?
Yeah, thank you.
303, 227.71, yeah.
Does this also include reducing the soup kitchen's freezer money? Because
You could go in and do that right away if we wanted.
No, it does not currently include that.
just go for the low hanging fruit, you know?
So ideally, we want to get this 303 down to 0.
Correct. That's our goal. It's really fun. So I think Alderman Lopez is saying if you go up to the soup kitchen just for now, I had the note here.
The floors
If we
and
took off what we
refrigeration.
think may not pass,
I think
Yep.
it would be
17.
17,107. Would cover the rest of it. Okay?
All right,
Just as a point of order, Alderman Timmons.
actually, you know what?
We would be looking at the original one.
Do you want to
not-
do that on the ideal?
Yep, so
Yeah,
that's
did you
not gonna
put,
adjust
you
with
layer
this.
in the less more?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Let's work with ideal and then we'll go from there.
All right, so let me just make sure we're.
Yeah, maybe you don't even make your tab till we're done here.
All right, here we go, so. that was
17,107.
17,107, thank you.
Which one is that?
That was for the Nashua Soup Kitchen and Shelter.
Okay.
Did you talk about the housing and rental improvement program and where it's at this year?
Certainly. All of the housing improvement program money has been expended. That's the ownership side of that program. And I believe we also we shifted some of the rental funds in there because we had spended all of the HIP funds.
And how much did you expend last year in this?
I want to say last year's allocations was 125.
Okay.
I can
And
look
then
that up real quick.
project delivery is the cost to do that?
Yeah, so that pays for our project administrator staff person.
Okay, now I have another question. That doesn't fall over to the left under staffing?
No, because of the nature of his job responsibilities, he is able to be separated out from administrative and planning. The work he does is considered project delivery.
And is that tied to how much project there has? So if we cut that in half, would his project delivery costs cut in half as well? Just
No, he costs the same no matter how much, but I will say he also does a lot of work with the nonprofit agencies' construction jobs, so he certainly has plenty on his plate, even if we do reduce the number of HIP projects we take on.
okay. Thank you.
what is the thought of the board about the Arlington Street windows? Because I think that would be the only actual public building that we'd be putting a sizable chunk of money into.
Yeah, but they asked for,
100,000.
100,000.
yeah, here
I
on
mean,
this, but-
there's a couple ways to go about this. We could reduce them across the board. We could, you know, set a cap for how much we want to give to each project based on how much we have to cut. Or we can go project by project.
So that's why I was asking the question, because if there's the interest in it, then those are the three biggest things I could think of to knock out, is the
Yeah.
refrigerator we know we can't do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to blank, the Tree Streets signage, which is less necessary. I know to some extent, what was presented to us in terms of the Public Works project is necessary. It's very important, and as Alderman, I definitely would champion that cause, but I don't know that CDBG was only intended for this kind of thing, and it seems like we actually need, based on what they said, a more intentional citywide plan for that,
I agree.
rather than, because, I mean, he said, this is scalable, we could scale it up, and I was like, well, okay, that's not gonna, that's great, now nobody gets doors, you know?
Yeah.
So we could look at that too. He almost discouraged us from just picking one of them and saying, okay, well, let's partially fund it. He said, if you just do one, then it might confuse people. I hate that, because that means like if you do anything, you just made it worse. And I would actually prefer more of what Alderman Timmons said, is at least do the one on like 10th Street, I think it was, either 10th or 11th.
Yeah.
But to that end, if we can clear out some of the bigger ones first, then we might be able to scale everything back a little bit to a way that it doesn't cripple any projects.
Director or
Or
Manager
Manager
Long
Long.
has.
Yeah. I just wanted to correct a statement I just made. I looked it up, and in answer to Alderwoman Kelly's question, it was $75,000 that was allocated to the housing improvement program last year.
And you spent all of it.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
That was the goal, right? We were worried about it being underutilized.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
hard to.
So as a flat percentage, how much would we have to take off if we did like the difference?
They're at just under 300,000 too. And do we have to get all these numbers down?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question.
Because we have to address administration and planning, PSA, and public facilities development and housing. Yeah, just under 30,000 between these two categories to resolve, and just under 300,000 under this large category to resolve.
So in the large category, just because I'm looking at the bigger part first, although it might not be the right way to do it, what is the scale back if we reduced everybody on a level, now that we've taken those other ones out?
How many projects are there?
What's that?
I'm just doing the
Oh,
math
sorry.
and thinking out loud.
Being my first one, do we do the whole hand thing, or do we just open a discussion kind of thing?
Yes.
We're a little
Oh,
loose.
done
We're a
both
little
ways?
I was gonna
loose
say, I
and
think
very
We're trying to
loose,
figure out a
yes.
process to streamline this a little
We've
bit.
really loosened up.
If I may make
Yeah,
a recommendation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
may not be the popular one, but seeing how many different organizations are looking for funds, and it may not be the popular one, but the downtown facade, I get there's a safety issue, but I personally have a hard time justifying with all these things that need money to, and I get there's a safety concern, but a beautification project for privately owned buildings, I would personally recommend that gets backburned to something else entirely.
I would agree. I
I
mean, I hate
agree.
having to say it
Sorry.
as the alderman for downtown, but
Sorry.
I've said it before.
Yeah,
Yep.
so take that out.
Put it on the if we get a windfall lottery ticket.
No, it's down, that's funding, it's the 50,000 right there. 15.
15, thank you.
9:15.
So we're cutting this down to 0?
Sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
You want?
Thank you for coming, Director.
You would recommend maybe taking the rail trail placards out. It's so hard because it's not that much money, but
It's a small ticket, yes, but and again, this is not to slight anybody who's come up here, but it does strike me in the grand scheme of things as more on the spectrum of a nice to have.
Yeah.
Which one is that?
That would be the rail trail
So
plaques.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I would agree with that.
That's probably something like we could be more creative with if we were really dedicated to getting people to sponsor it or something, and then they can pay for the plaque.
Yeah, I definitely did
If
like
I
the
could-
idea of a
I'm
sponsorship
gonna argue
program.
in favor for a second because it's not a big amount of money and we can complete the project. All the other ones, we're probably gonna have to partial fund in order to get it done.
Heard, but it's also the project that almost certainly will be destroyed in the first year or two.
I'm with you. I'm not gonna push hard on it. I'm just gonna.
It really makes it hard
Make
to
that
justify.
comment.
I know, that was what the concern is. If you're gonna do something like that, you have to do it differently, and, well, I will say that I'm being pessimistic by saying it will almost certainly, because it didn't the first time. When they were put up, they were there for probably like 4 or 5 years. But, I mean, unless you really hit those murals and you redo the street and all that kind of, the paving and everything, people kind of smack things as they go by right now, because the rail trail is in need of like update and upgrade. I think a better opportunity that is gonna be when we figure out how to get the other side done. Because there's funding for that the city's already received. We just have to figure out easements and all that kind of stuff, and it's a big enough project that adding that to it wouldn't be a big amount at all.
And
Yeah.
I also want to echo the school crossings. I think it's really important. Safety is really important, but the idea that we could have a more comprehensive look at it and potentially put it all together for efficiencies of cost is appealing to me.
That's the one that I hate to say, personally endorse, only because like it has been every year. And I don't want to be the one who shuts that down and then have an accident. So, I mean, I'm reluctant to say that, but I see the logic too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, did we take both of the economic
School
development things?
crossing one is,
So far, we've
Yeah.
only brought down the downtown facade program.
I think we should take the other one out as well, if everybody agrees.
That's
The
the,
sign?
that's the
The study.
plan up in the top left.
The
Yeah.
15,000
That
here?
one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This was the program to identify underutilized or misutilized properties and areas?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Long?
We can all just call on
I'm
Steve.
vice chair, go.
If I may, I would like, I do unfortunately agree with removing the economic development plan. I've run the numbers on our salary and benefits needs for next year, but if for some reason we do end up with sufficient funding, I think it would be nice to build that in as a contingency.
And, again, regrettably, it's not a slight against any program or application, but that does bring us to our nice clean number in column B.
Yeah.
All right.
See, that's where I would like to see Granite State Organizing Project, if you're listening, like really kick in, because I think that kind of a study would be a great partnership opportunity instead of just the city pays somebody to go do it, whatever, because we have, Nashua, Visualize Nashua, or I think that's what the name of it was.
Mhm.
And there would be a good counterpart if an organization wants to actually help figure out what would be a great thing for a nonprofit to rehabilitate and what areas are blighted. And when I say that, I'm also like very much aware that one person's blight is another guy's yard. So I don't want to see any gentrification because someone thought there was too much trash when we could have just put a dumpster out,
Mm.
I have two questions,
Mhm.
one to Mr. Long and one to our director, Sullivan. Mr. Long, I hate to put you on the spot here, but in terms of the housing and rental improvement program, I love the intent of wanting to expand it. What do you think is a workable number if we were to have to reduce it? Like, where do you feel is like bare bones will meet and give you a little bit more?
So in terms of, and I'll note, I merged the programs in your consideration for this year. The main purpose of that being if we need to shift funds between housing and rental, that way we don't have to keep coming back every time we make those shifts. But you could level fund at 75,000 for last year. I think we'd probably prefer 100,000.
Which idea, the level funding or the?
Level funding it at, well, 100,000.
Yeah, that would knock 75,000 off, so, yeah.
Oh,
Nope.
missed a zero.
Done. We are done.
Wow.
And then back to my question, does that allow us to bring that project delivery down at all? I know you kind of answered it, I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right.
Just tell me the real answer, it's fine.
We could probably bring it down to 100,000.
Okay,
Want to see what that?
we might as well.
Yeah.
Someone gonna miss a conference, or what's that? I don't wanna be short a whole person.
My follow-up question was for Director Sullivan. I am getting old. I remember we talked about the Arlington Street Community Center. I know there's some funding right now for community centers. Is this matching? Is this helping a project they're already doing, or this is just straight up they need the windows?
So, Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director. This is a supplement to a grant that was actually received through the state's Community Development Finance Authority by the city of Nashua that you've seen as part of legislation in front of the Board of Aldermen. So this project is already the recipient of a grant. This is actually an additional above and beyond, and when I say above and beyond, it's not an amenity, it's just a piece of the project that the project manager felt could be pulled out and submitted separately to CDBG. So it's a component of that project, but I will also tell you that, and I expect this goes for many of the projects before you this evening, that community center project is becoming more expensive by the day, obviously, and so I would advocate on behalf of this project, because I may have lost my own, and I'll say that I think they could really use this funding to ensure that that project is done fully. But again, yes, there's a grant in place for the work that's being done there, Alderman Kelly.
And just remind me, if scenarios out here,
Sure.
if this wasn't funded at all, are there any other ways that the Arlington Street Community Center could find this funding?
The center itself, I would suggest the answer is no. Alderman Senate obviously knows this, that program and that facility run on a very tight budget.
Very.
And so they're not collecting substantial revenues, and not that that would be funding, but they also have a very tight budget within the city's operational budget. And so it would likely be a separate capital request that would be needed to do this.
Okay.
And I think truly this facility is one that disproportionately, for a variety of reasons, serves vulnerable populations and low to moderate income populations in the city because of where it's located and who its user groups are. And so I think from a construction perspective, this project makes a great deal of sense in this context.
Yeah.
Not to directly contradict that, but it was my recollection that Director Cummings had pointed out that this building we couldn't necessarily expect to operate indefinitely. And I don't think that's necessarily true of several of the other buildings, like Mary Sweeney Home, for example, or the Soup Kitchen. They're going to be sticking with those buildings forever.
Mm-hmm.
Could I just speak to that briefly? I think we're sort of melding two different discussions, but on the subject of the Arlington Street Community Center, at a bare minimum, unless we want to pay back $1 million, we are beholden to utilizing that as a community center for the next 10 years at a bare
That's
minimum
right.
to satisfy the requirements of that loan/grant that we had received. That it is a loan that will be forgiven so long as that's utilized for that purpose for the next 10 years. Speaking just as the alderman for Ward 7 and as a resident of that Crown Hill neighborhood, I did cringe a little bit when we first said, well, what about the windows? Because if there ever was a time, I would argue that there is no time like the present. The community center is under a heavy deal of construction at the moment as a result of that loan/grant that we
Right.
received.
Yeah.
I would hate to see the amount of work that's going into that now be just another Band-Aid on a 140-year-old building that has a real opportunity to really rise to its own occasion.
I agree 100%. Sorry to speak the term, but.
We're all over the place.
Yeah, so
right.
just so everybody's
Yes.
clear, I'm looking at this more as a working
Yeah, it's kind of.
Workshopping than not
Actually,
doing.
in construction right now at the Arlington Street Community Center, and not to fund this is a disservice to that community and the Arlington Street Center. I'm gonna object wholeheartedly against lowering that.
I mean, so the implication here, though, is there are a lot of homeless people, and you're going to object to a community center instead of supporting their needs. And it is the largest ticket item on here.
Yeah. But we already
That's a lot of
spending a lot of
confidence.
money on that as well. And trust me, if I had millions and millions of dollars, that would go to the homeless. But
How much
right
do you need
now,
to
I
have?
think that,
'Cause we only need this much.
I know, but right now, I think that, it would serve the community center disservice if we lowered that bill.
Director Sullivan, do you remember the answer to if we partially funded it, what that would mean? You can't.
I don't know.
You don't know the answer, okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I have one, if you don't
Alderman
mind.
Thibodeau,
Okay, sure, go ahead.
he stuck his
No,
hand
I
up.
mean, I know, those fees.
A couple of questions to help get a better understanding. And I get the community that it's in, and I get, and this is in the nicest way possible, this is not, it's probably gonna sound bad, but I don't mean it to be. A nice, pretty building is nice to have, I get that. My question is, I think the other project was the wall, right? Wasn't there something, is this the building?
The
that had
back
the
wall is on construction
in?
right now.
Okay.
Yep.
So I get that there's construction companies there, and there's definitely an efficiency there. But is the community center usable,
Yeah.
safe, efficient? So, I mean, if those things are in place, I'm with Alderman Lopez. If those statements are true, then I don't think it's worth the money when we're trying to balance all these other projects. If that's not true, then we need to have
That's why
that
we asked the
further
clarifying
discussion.
questions.
Yeah.
You know, are the
Yeah.
windows, is the glass falling out? Is it, are they not operable? Are they safe if somebody needs to get out of the windows in a safe manner? I don't even know if that has the ability for that, but.
I think they're maybe working on trying to get some answers on that.
I think also, out of respect for my own comments earlier, Opportunity Networks might take a little bit of a backseat because they do have a door that slides versus, say, Mary Sweeney that does not have automatic doors. I consider that to be a problem for an elderly housing program where 2/3, if not more, are using walkers. I want to make sure they can get out if there's a fire. I want to make sure they're not having unnecessary accidents or falls or that kind of stuff. So I think because there is that comparison, I might move Opportunity Networks over to the would be nice to haves too.
Potentially.
Because we actually did the door the year before, didn't we?
The exterior door?
I feel like we did something similar to that, and now they want an additional, which makes
Yeah,
sense.
so
Yeah,
that's
this is
Opportunity
to
Networks. We
keep the
gave
cold
them the
out.
sliding door,
Yeah.
but now they want the vestibule, which would
Yeah.
do if we had it.
Yes, that is a prior project.
Thank you. So, what happens if you take that out? These are all, I also just want to caveat, because it's happened a couple times through our conversation, like, none of these are us saying that anyone is more or less deserving than the others. It's just an unfortunate
I keep trying to
function
repeat that.
of this committee that we have to go and through this and make some priorities. And we do have our CDBG fund plan that tells us where our sort of priorities should be, which we can use, and they all kind of fall in here, but just making that point for everybody so we don't have to make it again. We appreciate all the people who came in and all the work that they do.
Alderman Timmons?
Manager, thank you, Chairman Lopez. Manager Long, I have a question regarding the windows over at the Arlington Street Community Center. And I also have a comment about Mary Sweeney, because I'm kind of very familiar about that as well. My question about the windows over there, is that, I'm picturing the windows in but I'm not what you call those people that build houses and stuff, carpenter or whatever, because I'm not in that. But what is the problem with the windows? I can't physically see the problems with the windows. They do open and close. But then, I'm a layman, so can you kind of explain what is the problem with the windows? I can understand some problems with other people's windows, like my own in my own house, but.
Certainly, yeah. I can't speak to it in the level of detail that the community center director would be able to, but my understanding is that there's some leaks that they're experiencing through the windows, and it's part of the overall project of, and they do intend to do energy efficiency upgrades when they replace the windows as well.
I was actually gonna just sort of supplement that. I have Arlington Street's application up here in front of me. Their description says, a recent, as of last year, review of the facility recommended replacement of all 21 existing windows in order to achieve a watertight exterior envelope and to improve the energy efficiency of the building. Budget estimate includes the installation of the new exterior aluminum-clad Marvin replacement windows, as well as replacing the interior trim. And their ask is based upon the estimate for materials and construction for the windows.
Is that estimate included in that file?
The estimate is the 100,000.
But they, like other.
Oh, the actual file
yeah,
of their
yeah,
estimate? That I would have to dig more for.
It is not included in the file, unlike with the nonprofit agencies. More simple proposal is requested from city departments.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
Guessing we're doing the ADA aspect of that, and that's quoted in the CDBG just because we're in the middle of the ADA compliance project, not because the windows themselves are like not ADA?
Are you referring to that first document there?
Yeah. It
Where they,
says
I think
it's
that was
checked
sort
off
of,
as ADA and energy efficient, so I was like, who's going through the window? Or is there something like it has to be low enough or something?
What? Oh, no. Okay. We still have 140,000.
only.
If we were to take out Arlington Center and
That would bring us down to
Opportunity
41.
Networks, we would be in compliance. Or we can take a little bit from a lot of places.
I think we should start thinking on that line because I don't want to just murder a whole nother project.
Alright, so it's 140, how many, can you count up the projects here? Did we get that answer? We started and then we didn't finish.
You have got 13 there. It's 3, 16, 17. 18, I guess, if you count this one we took out.
Alderman Timmons?
Thank you, Chairman. They want 21 existing windows to replace. What if we do half of those windows, the ones that's in Dyer Street? And then that can cut that $100,000 down, and then they'll apply for another grant next year.
I mean, we need to know whether that is achievable, whether they can cut the baby in half, you know?
Well, it's better than no baby.
Well,
It
yeah,
might
I
not
would
be.
say typically just having done a window project before, typically it's per window.
So,
I don't know if that would look like, I don't know what logistically that would
If
look
you
like
do
for
the
that
top
facility,
floor.
whether it's, well, we'll do the second floor this year and maybe
Right.
the first floor next year, or vice versa.
Just
You
to
know,
be,
I don't want to speak for Director Hague, but.
it clarifies that this is the building that we're using, right? Because there's two sides, I think, of the Arlington Street Community Center, and one of them, we had that question about, it was like, wait, are we doing the one the community center's in, or the property?
The focus, I think, has been the actual usable side. To the best of my knowledge, the garage bays are used only for storage.
storage, that's it.
And Director Sullivan is nodding his head in agreement.
Can we, follow up, can we get some expertise advice here. I mean, I don't want to deny anybody else either, but I just want somebody like Director Sullivan to say what is feasible. I want his opinion on it, if he doesn't mind.
Director Sullivan, you're welcome to come and have a seat.
What is feasible from what perspective?
Give us some help.
He does not want to
No.
sit.
In the meantime, as a process,
I-
maybe we take the percentage that we have to remove and try applying
Don't
to see
go
what it looks
anywhere,
like to apply a
Manager Long.
percentage evenly. Like if we have to take 20% off, what happens if we drop everything by 20%?
So I did the math, but I did the math not based on taking from line 3, line 8 or 9. In order to get these, if we were to just take the deficit and spread it across, it would be $15,000 minus on all of them. But some of them aren't even $15.
I was gonna say, yeah, so-
That's why I was
So
looking at
that-
the percentage rather than a flat
Right,
rate.
right.
Well,
What's left to trim, 141?
141 from
I'm
this
actually
fall.
gonna back Alderman Lopez. I think that the Opportunity Networks does a lot of great things. We helped them last time. And I believe their answer was that they have a good ability to do some fundraising around it. So if we don't completely get rid of it, I would like to see that number come down quite a bit. That's one of our larger ones as well.
I think, I hate to say it, but probably the Plus Company's counter program too. I don't know about the floor, because
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to hurt themselves, and I don't know how serious
And,
they
like,
are.
This is just a working discussion, guys. We can delete it and then put it back after that,
course,
you know,
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
just see what happens.
So we have a clean copy here, so we know what
Exactly.
it looks like.
We got
But
an
I think
account
if
over
we're
here,
able
so
to
we
knock out the things that are like probably agreed upon as much lower priorities and put that on the, if we had enough money, we'd do it. That'll help us with this percentage idea where if we have to take out like a flat amount, we could see what that actually looks like proportional to the different programs, rather than a flat total dollar amount.
Yep.
so,
Well, I fear that I'm in a bit of a difficult position here,
You are.
doing a couple things. One, speaking to a project that I don't fully understand. I have to say that right up front.
okay.
I'm aware of the project. I'm aware of the CDFA award to the other part of the project. I'm aware of the need to replace, I think it's 20-plus windows as part of this facility. And I'm also aware of the idea that it's because of moisture intrusion and in issues with the interior trim as well. What I'm hesitant to say, I suppose, is that given $50,000 that the project can still be successful, I don't know whether that will yield an adequate result. What I will tell you is that another piece of this project has been a general interest in tightening the envelope at the center from a brick and repointing and masonry and other trim perspective. There's some wall work going on right now. So I believe part of the thought here was that the $100,000 to do the window was actually a significant step forward from sort of the energy efficiency perspective for the building. Doria Brown has been intimately involved with this project, Assistant Director Cummings and others, in trying to fix the envelope of this facility. And I know windows were a big part of that. And so if it again sounds like I'm being an advocate, it's because I am. I just can't say that given $50,000 this will be successful. I think what would be smart for me to say is that given $50,000, the project will try to close the gap in an expeditious manner to meet the requirements of CDBG. But it's possible that there'll be a need for additional funding that has to go through the Board of Aldermen or something to that effect in order to close that gap. And so I don't want to say it has to rely on that, but we can't make the project cost dip down to 50,000. We're going to have to find that money somewhere else, but also meet the timeliness requirements. And so, I'm not sure that's helpful whatsoever, but I do think splitting the baby here does become complicated because I think I can speak for the project team that doing half the windows doesn't make sense. You're sort of putting good money into bad in an envelope that might not be fully improved. But of course, my hesitance is I don't want you to weaponize that against me and make it $0 instead. So I'm of course nervous about that.
Director Sullivan?
Yes.
Money's in our energy efficiency fund.
Well, that's a great question. Currently, the fund is significantly depleted, Alderwoman Kelly. However, I know there's certainly movement afoot to reestablish a part of the term, sustainable funding source for that fund. So there again, given perhaps partial funding of this, I'm confident that maybe I could work with you and others to get some money available through the energy fund to maybe fill the gap if needed.
Great, thank you.
I have a question. Real
Oh,
quick.
sure, you.
On that vein, does Mary's House fall within the TIF district for the Performing Arts Center or National Center for the Arts?
I don't believe so. No, I know, I'm fairly confident I know exactly where that is, and the answer is no, it's not within the TIF district.
Okay.
Alderman Lopez, I'm sorry.
It's on the wrong side of the street.
Correct, yes, it is. Yep, it's across Main Street.
Director Sullivan, could you jog my memory? I know there were a lot of projects in mind when, excuse me, when we received the grant for the Arlington Street Community Center. I know HVAC had been bodied around. Do you know, is that part of the ongoing project over there?
That's an excellent question. I know I say that often, but in all seriousness, there's a debate happening generally across several city facility projects right now about energy efficiency and where money should be going to improve energy efficiency. And particularly what I mean is that HVAC has been identified in several projects. 9 Riverside Drive that we'll hear more about, this project. Frankly, any older building, we have HVAC issues. The problem is that the energy professionals are telling us, if you're gonna spend your money, if you improve the HVAC and you don't improve the envelope, there again, you're putting very good money into a very bad building. And so we're being advised to sort of work from the outside in a sense, to approach the envelope first and then work to improve the systems. Otherwise, you know, that money may not be well spent. And so HVAC was initially a component of the project, Alderman Senate. It's now much more focused, I would say, on envelope and ADA improvements, but there's still ongoing conversation about how much HVAC might be able to be done.
Okay.
I'd like to circle back to my question, because thinking about it, I don't think that was what you meant. I was saying Mary's house, not Mary Sweeney, which is not across Main Street. It might be across School Street, though.
Thank you.
So I don't know if that is outside of the range.
I don't know, Alderman Lopez. I can look in a moment, but I was thinking of the Mary Sweeney house, so thank you for that, or home rather. So thank you for the clarification. Just important to remember, though, that TIF projects need to be specifically identified within a TIF development plan as a public improvement. And so using TIF funds for improvements to a private or nonprofit facility, under my understanding of the law, would not be an appropriate usage of those funds. They really need to go to public improvements within a TIF development plan.
Okay. I know that Mary's house is a public benefit in a lot of ways, but if you don't think it would be eligible, that was kind of what I was looking at.
It's a good question, but I don't believe so.
So, okay, so now the clarification of the Sweeney, Mary Sweeney house versus Mary house is two different things. So I was thinking of Mary Sweeney because that's just that, okay.
Yep, Mary Sweeney needs automatic doors so people can get in and out of it. And then Mary's
also-
house needs, I think, heating repairs.
Yeah, it's one of the second biggest line items, 75,000 for heating upgrades.
I guess we're not the only ones doing the energy efficiency things. And that might be a good question to ask in the future is like, okay, if you're gonna do this, are you gonna get the outside envelope or is it just gonna be a boiler update? Did we figure out what the total percentage looks like if we tried to flatten it?
No.
So my thought is if we can figure out how to algorithm this, I guess, make whatever the total difference is as a percentage and then
So we
show
got down to
what it would look like if all of these were going down by that
What
percentage.
percentage
5,000,
of
506,000.
all our outstanding asks
Yeah.
this number is?
So if we have these totaling up and we
Yeah.
know, okay, this is what
Well, that's
we-
this.
our differences. Okay, so this
So you wanna know what percentage of that
of
647?
what's actually available is that.
20%.
22%.
So what happens if you make a column of what it would look like if that percentage were applied to all of these? And then that way, if you're changing this total number, it's also leveling. I mean, it might be a circular.
We really, I
at some
can't
point, but
insert, okay.
just put a-
Why don't we just do it in this column here, so. What did we say, 22?
20%?
21, yeah, almost right there.
We'll call it 218.
It might make a loop. It might make a circular reference, but I hope not.
It's gonna. Wow, I really don't.
Just copy. and
Yeah, I know.
Could you use?
It is a really hard job being the one doing the Excel. while
No, you guys can
talking.
rip on me, I don't care.
No, it's not fun.
I think you're doing good.
I don't know if that quite gave us the number we really want, though.
No, I
No,
think it
that
just
tells
gives us
us
an idea of
what
what ones look
we would
ridiculous.
take off. You need to,
All right, so you need 73, or 70.
73 minus.
Oh, the other side. okay.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Take 73% off.
Yeah. So 73% of each one of these? Oh, that's a bigger number.
Alright, where does that land us? Cause we know we can't do that to some of those, we're gonna have to go back.
No, I was just thinking that maybe it would give us an idea of which ones we definitely can't do it to, and then maybe
Yep.
look at it that way.
So maybe,
I'd like to ask for project delivery to be exempted. The 100,000 is pretty, that's
Yeah,
the
I
bare
know,
bones
those two
budget
I
we
was
need.
gonna
Okay,
exempt both of those.
yeah.
Yep.
thank you.
So leave those at the total at the regular, and then have a total down here so we can compare how close it gets.
So you wanna see what the total of this is,
Yeah.
Yep.
but it's 326,000.
That's only 326,000?
And I threw out 73%, but it's actually 78-ish.
Yeah,
Oh, so we did it too much.
My brain hurts.
honestly, with my shift key,
Are they way over here?
you should hear me yelling at myself at work.
Alright, so that's too
That's
Too
too
much.
much. We have to put the 100,000 back definitely in the other one.
Yeah, make line, whatever that is, the top one, 62, make that, oh no, you took that out altogether.
That's all right.
We can undo
Type
these
it,
things.
No, but then, does your 326 include the 200,000?
No,
Okay. So then we're still at a deficit, correct?
so that's this. That excludes these two,
Yeah.
only goes through here.
So the summary would do all of them. We just wouldn't put the percentage on the two that we're not reducing. Like this, these would be the same as here. Or at least
So you
100,000.
keep these,
Yep, and this isn't a formula. This isn't a formula. You just
Yeah,
put
it was.
these.
It was
It would say
73%.
unformulate and put it back into, that's a flat amount.
This is just a comparison right now. This is not changing anything over here yet.
Oh, okay.
And it might not be the popular opinion, but what if we just took out the Arlington windows?
What's it look like?
You'd have 41,000.
We'd still have 41,000 to get taken.
Yeah.
Put it back.
I'd put, I'd put most of that back because why, I mean, I'm not necessarily in
Still
favor of
get
the
us
whole
there.
thing, but it doesn't make sense to arbitrarily cut the whole project unless we know that either it can't be done or it can be done.
I'm gonna go back to what I had said earlier was, let's take out our opportunity networks.
I thought we did
They
that.
were fully, no,
Sorry.
you haven't
You wanna
yet.
take them out entirely?
Yeah, I mean, it's
For now.
just the vestibule, right?
For now,
That was their project, yes, the vestibule,
So we should move them over to the
nice to have.
less more,
yeah.
Okay.
So now we're at what?
81,000.
Okay.
There was, who was it? We had said flooring but not counters.
I mean, those are small,
They are, and it's a small ticket.
you know what I mean? It's like, what's it, 75,000?
Did we have anybody else who felt comfortable with their fundraising? We asked that question a
I
lot.
feel like partial funding for at least the children's home would still work for them. I'm actually like a little surprised that surveillance technology is 84,000, but I feel like if they were able to tell people we have most of it, but we need, people to help out, that might be part of it. And then I definitely want Family Promise to have everything that they need, but at the same time, that's also something where if CDBG seems like it's better designed for brick and mortar things, and if we try to use it for staffing things,
Yeah, that was weird.
it may just burn us this year and then we don't have it next year anyway.
It's not that we don't have the need there, but that is, I mean, we've generally talked about like using one-time funding for staffing just creates more issues down the line when they have to then continue to support that staff.
Like the school
What if we
district.
take plus, is it plus that I'm looking at, Nashua and, where's the 75, Mary's house? And just level fund them both at 50, that means nobody's getting more than 50 that isn't in our city.
So you want to level fund Nashua Children's Home?
Just throwing it out there, because if you drop that one
But she also said Mary's place.
and Mary's house, and say, basically, we're kind of saying 50,000 is our biggest allocation we can do this year, other than city
That would look
projects.
like this. Close,
Close,
yeah.
really close.
I should look back at the maps, 'cause I feel like Nashua Children's Home, I feel like we asked them that question.
We did.
And I feel like they had some degree of confidence in their ability to make up the difference.
It's also worth pointing out that if we use that logic with the, it's gonna burn the Sweeney home too, so, I mean, just to put it out there. But if we use the logic we use with Opportunity Networks, that we helped them before, and then we don't have enough to do it again, we help the children's home out a lot.
This is true.
Like, they're basically doing something every year.
Yeah. It's just a tough choice, because it's like, do you want to give people a partial, or do you want to fund fully a
I
few
do,
projects?
I do like the idea of partial funding, at least on some of these, because it at least supplements the project.
Yeah. Mr. Long.
Yes, if I may, as you do that analysis, I would ask you to keep in mind whether the agency has the capability or plans to come up with that other funds. Some of these agencies likely do. Other agencies really put all their eggs in the CDBG basket, and if they only receive partial funding, the project has a fairly high likelihood of failure.
Yeah,
Can I put
I
that
think
in spot for a second?
the best example, that's Arlington, because we're the funder, so like,
And it's
we don't have
us
another
and
plan,
building.
we know we don't.
Yeah, Arlington does not have a steady stream of funding, yeah.
And we're definitely not gonna be bonding anything like that, because that's a finite resource too.
Well, that's the valid opposite end of that discussion is, if, like I said, we want to not pay back that $1 million loan,
Yeah.
then we want that building to be sustainable for that period of
That
time
period of
at
time.
least.
It's almost like the school issue. You have to put a roof on the school, or, well,
E-
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, it's
I
the
mean,
same thing.
Oh, it's a lot more cost effective than that turned out to be. We're talking about 100,000 instead of 4 million.
But nevertheless, when
Yeah.
I've
Well, we
utilized the
use the
term kick
same,
issues down the road,
we use the same logic with the Hunt building too, is, we have to fix it because otherwise we'd lose our precious ancient building.
Exactly.
Like I said, I feel bad because I imagine orphans, but if it came down to sheltering families or providing rent assistance or prevention versus the security system, I feel like they might be able to figure it out, the security system over literal families that don't have resources.
Where are you what is the second project you're talking about?
I wouldn't want to, I'm pitting National Children's Home against Family Promise.
Family Promise. Thank you. I was just trying to follow. We are also missing the 3 in the middle because they're, like, we're looking at that right hand, but we also, nope, scroll. We have the 30,000 for, we're not even looking, we didn't cut any of those. And we were talking about, and then you have,
I think we were doing just going column by column.
I'm just saying we're missing those as we're
Yeah.
thinking
Are
about
those
our
part of the
total.
total?
Cause, yeah.
Well,
they're
no,
part-
Family Promise, for example, this 30,000 doesn't play into this amount that we're trying to pare down. It actually plays into this amount that we're trying to
Also,
pare
I
down.
shouldn't compare those because this is a pointless comparison.
They're separate buckets.
They're separate,
That's
okay.
correct.
Yeah, so we have 3 buckets that we need to get down to 0. We've succeeded with 1.
Good job.
33% there.
Okay,
And
so
we're
go up to, why don't
halfway
we
to
go
this
up
last
to those
one.
3, cause that'll be easy, right?
All right, so you want to
Those
look
3
at column
requests,
D?
and we're trying to get 12 out of there,
12-3, yep.
and we have 30,000 for the homeless prevention staff member who's working in diversion,
Mhm.
and
I would say Lamprey, if we were looking at it from an organization, can probably figure something else out. I feel like they could. Because
Lamprey,
out of those 3, they're the ones with the billable services.
is that the 50,000?
Yeah.
Lamprey
that's
was
true.
primarily operational costs,
So-
if I remember correctly, just broad, high view.
They wanted to increase their
Let me
ability
look
to
at Lamprey. Wow.
have the
Mobile
mobile health
outreach,
unit in
yeah.
more places, yeah.
That's
So if we
also-
drop that to 38, that gets us where we need, right?
Yeah, because I mean, we're also like more likely to be able to partner with them for grants through the health department. There's other organizations like Harbor Care that have a van. So I would say PAL's not gonna generate money with this gym.
Yeah, you wanna do the exact number?
12,307.76.
Okay. All right, 2 columns.
So that's 2. Now we're just back into our public facilities.
Situation.
And we're
So,
currently, if we like all of our things, we're looking for 20,000?
21.4, yep.
so what if we take out 2, even though he said not to, what if we take out 2 of the crossing things and put 1 right where it really needs to be? And that is similar to the facades where it's a model for what we could be doing.
So taking out the full 30,000?
Yeah, because he said it was for 3 stops.
So you wouldn't take out the full. If you wanted to keep 1, you would take out 20.
Exactly.
He's still
But
here.
that's much closer.
He is. Hello.
He is actually in the room.
It is 10,000 per location.
Yeah.
Yep.
Am I correct about the, don't just,
Is there one that's
if one's
more
still there, it's still gonna
dangerous?
be okay, right? Like,
Yeah, incremental improvements, absolutely.
So you could drop that to 10. And then we're done.
1.4. So kitchen has already been pared down.
Yeah, I didn't wanna comment on it, but having a divot in the ground where you're trying to put like a trolley full of things is just gonna have them wipe
I
out.
just
That's kinda
envisioned the
scary.
pallet jack going
Yeah.
over that, yeah.
And that's the
Mr.
exit
Long.
door for everybody.
Go ahead.
Since this is such a small amount, I think it might make sense at this point to just take the remainder out of the housing and rental improvement program.
Oh, like the 1,000 or whatever?
Yes.
I'm struggling with what we just did, taking money out of school crossings.
I don't think he's gonna come back and say take 20,000 from him though.
No, I know. Literally my least favorite night of the year.
I think it was gonna come down to something like that anyway, and at least now we're putting 1 in where there wasn't one before. And I'm thinking of from the street comic thing, I'd rather have 2 because, you know, each side slows down as it crosses one of them. But starting with 1, maybe we can figure out the second one, and then from there, eventually the third.
Mr. Long wanted to speak.
Or Manager Long,
Thank you,
sorry.
Ben. Also, you can choose to reduce the housing and rental improvement program to 75,000, and that can get the lead street crossings back up to where it needs to be and make up the remainder.
Okay.
But
well,
then you're
yeah,
level
I could
funded
pick
and you
choose
don't
one.
get to expand any of your capacity.
That is correct. There is a trade-off.
Can I, how many projects do you estimate you turned away once that money was gone? That's a big question.
No, so far, 3, maybe 4.
I just have a hard time cutting from there because we know as a city, one of the biggest things we are struggling against is having affordable housing.
That's absolutely right.
And we have crumbling infrastructure, so I have a hard time pulling from that. And I appreciate your being gracious there. And again, it's not pitting, safe crossings against that, but.
It's all important. The funding tends to go down a bit every year. It's an incredibly difficult decision.
If it was affordable housing, would that be something where we could have the Affordable Housing Trust Fund contribute to that? Or does it have to be like separated only CDBG monies for that program?
So what you're asking is, could the Affordable Housing Trust Fund fund the deficit perhaps of the
Yeah,
housing?
I mean, like
affordable
for
programs?
the tune of $5,000, and then we can pick at least 2 of the crosswalks.
The Housing Trust Fund certainly can fund that style program. I wouldn't suggest using those monies to supplement the existing program run through urban programs. Frankly, I think that would complicate things more. But certainly a comparable program could be supported, yes.
To that end, says the person who goes to all the meetings, is there anything else on here that could potentially be a candidate for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund? And I'm actually answering my question in my own head at the same time.
It's my opinion only. The programs or the allocations here closest to that fund are actually the ones that are run through our urban programs department already.
Yeah.
And are successfully done in that way. Many of these, they're construction projects and by themselves do not have new unit creation. They have a level of preservation to them, but they likely wouldn't be, I'll call them turnkey submissions to the Housing Trust Fund.
Yeah,
That would be
I
my
understand.
sense.
So if we do what Mr. Long said, we take what's left out of the 100,000, it's only what, $1,000 or something?
Yeah, say 1,500.
Then we're at 0.
Could I ask a quick question of the gentleman from Public Works in regard to the crossings? Are the 10,000 per, is that like visibility or a post in just one direction? Or would like 10,000 be a crosswalk, so you have one facing westerly, facing easterly?
Yeah, so the 10,000 is per assembly, and we're asking for 3 assemblies.
Okay. So if we were only to do one, you'd have one facing in one direction.
Each assembly comes with 2
Oh.
rapid flashing beacons, so it covers the whole entire
So
crosswalk.
east-west is covered, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So just to clarify my earlier comment, if a car is coming down the road, you see one on one end of the school and one on the other, and both make them slow. But when they get to the crosswalks, they're still gonna slow.
No, I believe you're thinking of a radar feedback system, something that is near the Birch Hill Elementary School or Charlotte just installed some through the Safe Routes to School. These are very similar to what's out on Main Street, and the 10,000 is per each location for the assemblies, and Public Works would come in, redo the sidewalk, make everything ADA compliant for those assemblies.
Right, I was just thinking from a driver perspective, if somebody's coming into Main Street and across the City Hall and then sees like the lit thing, they're like, oh, right, I'm in Main Street, I'm gonna slow down. Likewise, somebody coming in over by Peddler sees it, and then you don't have to wait until they get to the one at Flight Center to actually slow down, they both know.
But that would account for 2 assemblies.
That's what I was saying,
Okay,
2
yes.
might be better.
I thought you were splitting one up, is how I was reading that, and that's not.
I don't know if that works, but I
Stretch
hadn't
them
actually thought
across
about
2
that.
We are
crosswalks.
not engineers.
Can we just sprinkle them?
I appreciate that
Any other
context,
questions?
thank you, that helps, yeah.
Can I make the suggestion that we take the 1,500 out of the urban programs and then just see how we feel about this plan? We usually go line by line and make motions. Go ahead. Okay.
So with that at 98.5,
That gets us
that
to
brings us to 0.
Director Sullivan wanted to say something.
If you would be interested in reducing the $6,600 down based on the delta that you're dealing with, the 1,400, I will find funding to purchase the plaques at whatever this committee is able to provide.
So you'd rather put that money back into
I would,
rental and improvement? Okay.
yes,
And take it out of your 6,600?
correct.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought we already took that out.
Yeah, I thought we did that one anyway.
I think
We decided not to.
you tried to, and then it was still in there, and I didn't want to say anything.
Don't say anything.
I forgot it was even in there.
I think you're gonna
I'm
go back
kidding.
up.
I was positive it was
Of
gone.
course, if it's the committee's preference to take it out, that's fine, but I did just, if you want to reduce that, I will find the remaining funding there, rather than taking it from the existing program. I don't think that's.
All right, so that would leave Director Sullivan with 5182 and bring
Yeah,
us to
Director
0.
Sullivan, if you made me like a stencil and 2 things of paint, I can do it for you. Just saying.
All right,
Very
I will
easy
keep
to
that,
clean
I
up.
will keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay. So, go ahead. Do you want to go back up just so we can see what we've done? We're at 0 on all of them. We in the past have done line by line.
I was gonna say, I can zoom out, I don't think anybody wants us any
Yeah.
smaller.
I don't know if
You
we
get rid
are
of some of these
required
tools
to
up
do
here?
it that way, but we've
That-
done line by
that
line.
upper menu
votes.
that's taking up 20% of the screen.
I know, right?
This thing?
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that, we're almost there. To be fair, I don't think we need our calculations over here anymore either.
Those are just confusing now. But we could apply that logic. Wait, do we have to? It looks like we're at 0 on all 3.
We are.
We are.
Oh,
That was just
alright.
our
This,
showing our
this
work.
is our sit back and take a look at it now.
Okay.
And I believe it had been mentioned to go line by line and perhaps make a motion to accept or amend.
I don't know if we have to do it that way, but we have in the past.
Yeah, would it be possible to just say we make a motion to accept the spreadsheet as presented at this moment?
I can't speak to what the city requires, but in terms of what HUD requires, that's perfectly acceptable. And I will ask again that you build in contingencies.
Yeah.
What that will allow us to do is to only do the public input process once versus having to redo it once we receive our actual allocations.
So now that we've done this project, I'm almost wondering if just contingencies in this would be easier, because then we can see what we underfunded and put it right next to it.
Yeah.
So let's work on contingencies then. If we get more money, which projects do we want to put?
I would
money
want to
back
put at least
into?
one of those crossings back. That way,
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
2 if is better.
Yeah, like what are,
than 1.
and is that the best way, Mr. Long, to like say our priority would be to put as much back into the crosswalks as possible, or?
So if you wish to do it that way, I would choose a few projects and rank them.
Okay.
If we get enough to fully do the crosswalks, we'll do the crosswalks. If we get even more than that,
Yeah.
we'll do project, B, project C, and really 3 should be more than adequate.
Or we
And-
could say, take them and equally, spread it over the ones that weren't fully funded.
Absolutely.
How do we wanna do it?
Well, why not just say 1 cross thing and then spread the rest equally? Except for the ones that are zeroed, because, I mean, if we're gonna do something, we should do more than like a percentage.
I'm looking at the other things we zeroed. I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, Opportunity Networks, I don't know if giving them like 5,000 is gonna be anything useful.
Yeah, no, that one I don't unfortunately, it was either fund or not fund.
I definitely don't see the facade program as being a participant in that anyway, because
Sorry.
unless
I
we
feel
give
so
them
bad.
a big
2
windfall.
years in a row,
like,
we're like,
yeah.
nah.
Oh, it's a much-needed program, but
This may not be the vehicle for doing it.
Could we go line by line so I could see clearly?
yep, actually, most of the lines are visible here. The only thing that's really not is the total down below.
Do you want to go from the top, Alderman Timmons?
Yes.
So that 106, 132, we need to agree with because that's the cost of the project.
That's the
gotta stay.
mandate, yeah.
And then Mr. Long recommended, unfortunately, that we don't do the 15, because that puts us over the percentage threshold. So those feel pretty solid. Going on to the ones that are, I don't remember what PSA stands for, but staffing.
Yeah, I'm just comparing.
That was the
what
staffing
here before.
for Family Promise.
What's PSA stand for? Sorry.
It stands for Public Service Agencies, and this is the operating expenses category.
Gotcha, thank you, okay. So here we took from Lamprey and left everyone else whole.
Yep.
Any objections there?
Nope.
Okay, so far side. Rental, housing and improvement, and project delivery. We cut significantly. We cut 100,000 from those two lines. But did come in a little bit over what we level funded last year.
Natural children, okay.
Yeah, Nashua Children's Home we brought down from around 84.
84
To 50.
Okay,
That's fully funded.
yeah,
That's fully funded.
yeah,
That we brought down by 25,000.
yeah.
Arlington is nebulous, but we're assured they need 100,000, leave that. Facade.
The soup kitchen doesn't need more money. So if we had overage, we wouldn't need to put them in as like
Yeah, I don't think
contingency
they're,
because we
No,
did
I
their
mean,
whole
you could,
thing.
you could put out ones that we're not gonna add any more funding to, if that helps. You could put like an X and like, that's not, that would
Okay,
help us if you wanted to make
17,
like a,
I don't, yeah, so one next to the
contingency.
soup kitchen, I think we did fund fully the Sweeney home. So I think really we would be looking at,
Yes, Sweeney's funded.
Plus
Soup Kitchen, we
company.
took out refrigeration.
which is pretty much funding what we think is eligible.
Yeah.
So the things we didn't fully fund are the children's home. Did we bring the Plus Company down? No.
yeah.
No, Plus Company we left alone because it was a relatively
So it's
low
really
ticket for two
Oh.
children's
projects.
home and heating upgrades.
And we brought down Opportunity as well.
Mary Sweeney
Yeah,
down.
but
Yeah, but
that's,
opportunity was too far.
there's no way we could have, like, I can't imagine we get $60,000. We'd be like,
Right.
here you go.
Public Works, we brought down to one crossing. Rail Trail, we brought down a bit with Director Sullivan's advice that he could make up the difference.
I mean, I see if we got more, being school crossings, followed by any additional we could put in house and rental, followed by rail trail plaques.
I might restore some to either the children's home.
Could do that too. Mr. Long, did you have a comment there?
So we want to put a contingency that if additional funds come in, we would,
Add in
allocate that.
increments of 10,000?
what's that?
Add in increments of 10,000? Or what did you say, Tom, you said,
I was saying just add one crossing back and then evenly distribute the additional amount among those ones that we identified as eligible, the ones that we started to reduce down to 50,000.
is that enough detail for you?
Yes, that should be fine. Just to make sure I'm understanding clearly, it's additional funding for another crosswalk, that first 10,000, and then the remainder spread among unfunded or underfunded projects, except for the facade program.
And opportunity networks, unless we somehow.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking the ones we dropped down to 50.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's what everyone else intended.
So
I mean, those are the only ones we underfunded.
Remind me where we want to allocate the others, just for typing
So-
purposes.
So the soup kitchen, the, Plus Company was the same. Mary's Place,
Mary or Mary Sweeney?
Mary's Place.
Mary's house.
Front door, that's where we brought, yeah,
And then,
Children's home?
children's home.
yep, did I go through?
So
Everything
these,
else we pretty much funded.
these would
fully.
be our three contingencies beyond a crossing in increments of,
I don't think we reduced the soup kitchen.
Yeah, we did.
we
They
did,
wanted
we
to
took out
decide
the
of-
refrigeration.
Well,
But I thought
did
that couldn't
reduce it
qualify.
per se, yeah, I don't
We
think.
brought it down to what we could fund. and
So
get-
they got
I
everything
was
they could
talking
apply.
about the children's home. It's
Okay,
it's
so
the children's
not
home.
soup kitchen then,
Yeah.
Correct, they're fully funded.
okay.
It's that one,
So this would be even distribution
it.
between these two?
I thought there was another one that we.
I
took
thought so
down.
too,
Was Mary Sweeney originally 50,000?
yeah.
So maybe we did better than we thought we did.
I would put,
Maybe back in the.
I'm still gonna go for housing and rental improvement.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Put one in housing and
Mary's-
rental improvement.
Mary Sweeney was originally 50,000.
Yeah.
And what increments are we
Do
doing that
you
just?
need to then
to split
also
the
put
remaining.
project
All right.
delivery?
$80,000 more.
If we say, if there's additional funding into rental improvement, I assume you also need additional project delivery.
It's not a need, but it would be
Okay.
appreciated.
Okay. All right, so that's a contingency if we get more.
Do you want to
Was-
do one for project delivery too, or?
Mr. Long said it's not necessary.
Okay,
What would
Um,
be a reasonable enough expectation of HUD? Like, how much variance do they ever have?
I don't remember, I think it was something.
Oh, sorry, I
Um,
was talking to Urban Manager Long, I should have addressed him.
So we don't have our allocation yet, but a budget for HUD has been passed. CDBG is level funded from last year. So I'm expecting we'll see probably a fairly small variation from this year's grant allocation.
That's what this is based on.
Yes, this is based on our current grant allocation minus 15%.
So can I just also, this is what I would say, sorry, Matt, if it's under, I think we just get rid of rail trail plaques, cause it doesn't sound like it would be under by like 60,000.
so if we fall under our expected amount, you would cut this.
First.
Yeah, I don't think anyone on the rail trail is gonna get lost. I mean,
That's just assuming
if one were to
that-
consult me, I would just say put QR codes everywhere that led to a website that tells where these things are, because that's harder to tag, you know? You can fix it.
Now, the fun part is we
Is
gotta
that
get this
enough for you?
uploaded back to the.
You should also do contingencies for the PSA category. It's not really needed for admin and planning, but I think it would be nice to say if we have more money, we'll go ahead and put the economic development plan back in.
So if we, PSA, if we had more money, we would fund Lamprey Health, because everything else was fully funded, correct?
That's correct.
And then if the top two, we would fund economic development's request for 15,000.
These for the
top two
study
was
versus the
already-
facade?
Already the same anyway, staff one. That would reduce.
Sorry, Director Sullivan, I don't know if you can answer this, but should we prioritize the study versus the facade? Because I feel like if there's money, extra money, it's not gonna be enough for the facade anyway.
I can answer that. Actually, they're different categories, so they're not in competition.
That's what, yeah, that's we're talking about them separately.
Yeah.
I thought they were different, okay.
Manager Long, is the information that I've put in column H enough for you to work with? I'm shorthanding this dreadfully, so that's why I ask.
I've been taking my own notes as well. I believe so.
Okay.
And forgive me if I missed this. Did you build in contingency if we receive less money for the PSA category? What reductions would you like to do?
We did not.
Mm.
I would personally say if we had to reduce because of less funding, I would reduce PAL over Family Promise, but there is an argument to be made that PAL's not looking for personnel stuff. So I don't know.
We just do it evenly.
Anyone have an objection to that?
No,
Or
I-
leave PAL because it's 11,000 and do the other, to reduce the other two evenly.
Yeah.
That's, yeah. I think I would agree with that.
Yeah. How you feeling about our plan and our Excel document?
No, I do appreciate you building in contingencies. It makes the process a lot more streamlined.
Does this feel like we've addressed as much contingency as possible for you?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Can I move that we approve the allocations and contingencies as we have
As presented?
worked so hard to put together?
Oh, I gotta get my
over the
clerk
last few
sheet
hours?
back out, hang on.
So we'd be amending the proposed applications with the digital copy we just created?
Correct.
So I guess we can get rid of that second tab I added for nothing. Or do we wanna keep it just for reference?
I guess it technically would be,
Hey, it's a right to know, man, you gotta keep it here.
Yeah.
to amend.
Just relabel it scratch sheet.
There.
Does everyone understand the motion? Gonna move to amend and then move to recommend?
Alderman Timmons, you wanna vote on this?
I have to go.
Okay.
I'm at that age.
Do we still maintain a quorum? Yes, we do.
Just for the record, age has nothing to do with it, I'm about to die myself. All right, then, do we wanna wait? I mean, we can wait like a minute or two, give her a second, or we could just move the vote. I don't think she objects. What's the sense?
I'm just looking for where I gotta put my motion here. Or Alderwoman Kelly's motion, as it were. You know what, I should probably store it here, because we still actually haven't even voted on that yet. We were in the
Nope.
discussion phase.
And we still have the public comment section.
Yep. So, motion.
Did we decide we're holding on the motion until?
I'm just letting the clerk stall by writing. As soon as he's done writing, then we have to make a choice. Alderman Clee is sitting somewhere breathing a sigh of relief, and she doesn't know why. Alderman Timmons did not escape the vote. We're still writing down the motion.
Okay, so I have a motion by Alderwoman Kelly to amend the fiscal year 2025 CBDG grant application summary with the digitally amended copy.
All right, does everybody have and understand the motion? All right, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody's opposed.
All right, so, did we ever vote on R 24022?
Yeah, now we need to recommend.
Okay.
I make the motion to recommend final passage of the thing as amended.
All urban manager Long, that's in order because we still got the other steps, right? We're not doing anything silly here.
Good evening again. So this is really just you're reapproving what you just did.
Okay, do we want to recommend it? Do we want to table it? How do you want us to do that?
No, you should recommend it.
Yeah.
All right, well, there's
Please
the
recommend it.
discussion.
We have to recommend.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
That carries.
All right, motion carries.
Whew.
Now we did.
Can we do it?
Tomorrow.
No, I can't, we still have other
No, we
things.
have a whole other page.
Yeah, well,
I thought we did those.
move
did.
to adjourn. No?
We're not there yet.
Well, it's a non-debatable motion, we could be there. We have
new business, right?
It is non-debatable. However, I will announce that we have new business
Just
ordinances, none, table
go.
committee, none, general,
Just go.
public comment. Public comment,
Remarks, blah, blah, blah.
all right.
But it's
It's
too
a non-debatable
good 'cause
motion,
she
so
motioned and
all
she
those in
got
favor
taken
say
away.
aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay, because it's my tradition. All right, then we are adjourned at
I was joking, but okay.
10:13. Hey, it's a
Yeah,
motion,
well,
it's
you-
non-debatable.
once
You
it's
can't
on
joke.
it,